Afghanistan-Pakistan border 1989. The night air hung heavy with dust and tension. Through a sandstorm that turned visibility into little more than a guess, a single shot broke the silence of the mountains. The bullet traveled 1.7 kilometers, over a mile, cutting through swirling sand and howling wind before finding its mark with devastating precision. The target, a high-ranking Soviet-backed terrorist commander whose elimination had been deemed impossible by three separate Delta Force assessment teams. The impossible shot was the work of Master Sergeant Catherine Kate Morgan, a woman whose name would become both legend and cautionary tale in the classified halls of America's special operations community. The 7.62 millimeter round that ended the terrorist's life wasn't what made her a legend. What came after did. The military brass called her Deadshot Morgan, 317 confirmed kills over 15 years of service. The most lethal precision weapon ever deployed by the United States military until the day her own government betrayed her, stripped her of everything, and forced her into the shadows. This is the story of how Kate Morgan's rifle spoke again from the Colorado mountains 6 months after the world tried to forget her. How a woman abandoned by her country saved the very men who had cast her aside. How redemption comes to those who wait in the cold. Colorado Rockies 2006. 6 months after the Checkpoint Alpha incident, the mountain air bit cold and sharp as Kate Morgan stepped onto the wooden porch of her isolated cabin. At 45, her face carried the weathered lines of someone who had spent years squinting through rifle scopes reading wind patterns and calculating the mathematics of death at extreme distances. Her dark hair, once regulation short during her service years, now reached just below her shoulders, streaked with premature silver, the legacy of too many high-stress deployments and the final betrayal that had ended her career. Inside the cabin, laid out on a handcrafted cedar table, her Macmillan TAC 338 sniper rifle waited in disassembled perfection. The weapon represented the pinnacle of long-range precision, a custom-built marvel capable of consistent accuracy at distances beyond 1,500 meters in the right hands. And Kate Morgan's hands were the best the military had ever measured. "Morning, old friend," she murmured, returning inside to her daily ritual. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, each component of the rifle receiving meticulous attention. The bolt assembly gleamed under soft lamplight as she examined the extractor and ejector for microscopic imperfections. The match-grade barrel, capable of sub-millimeter precision at ranges most shooters couldn't even see targets, received a careful inspection with a bore light. Kate had modified the weapon herself with a custom-bedded action to eliminate even the slightest movement between stock and receiver. The scope, a Nightforce ATKR 735 56F1 with enhanced low-light capabilities, had been zeroed with obsessive precision for multiple ranges and environmental conditions. This wasn't just equipment maintenance. It was meditation, ritual, the last vestige of control in a life where everything else had been taken away. Her attention shifted to the military-grade radio system she'd salvaged from an old operation. Through it, Kate monitored communications from Mountain Fortress Joint Base 30 miles to the east, the sprawling military installation where she had once been a respected instructor before Checkpoint Alpha changed everything. The radio crackled with routine transmissions, supply requests, patrol schedules, weather advisories. Kate absorbed the information with the situational awareness of someone whose life had once depended on noticing patterns and anomalies in enemy communications. A particular transmission caught her attention. "Mountain Fortress, this is Convoy Delta 6, proceeding with diplomatic package via Route Canyon. ETA checkpoint 1100 hours. Kate frowned. Route Canyon was notoriously vulnerable to ambush, a winding mountain road with high ridges on both sides providing perfect overwatch positions. In her professional assessment, it was a tactical nightmare, especially for a convoy carrying diplomatic personnel. She checked the weather forecast on her tactical laptop. A severe snowstorm was approaching from the northwest, expected to hit the mountains by mid-afternoon. The convoy would be driving straight into deteriorating conditions through hostile terrain. "Amateurs," she muttered, "same predictable route every time." The decisions reflected the kind of complacency that got people killed, the type of mistake she'd seen too many times before, including 6 months ago at Checkpoint Alpha. The memories of Afghanistan returned with perfect clarity. Kate had been on overwatch duty for a diplomatic convoy navigating treacherous mountain passes near the Pakistani border. Through her scope, she'd spotted the telltale signs of an imminent ambush. Barely perceptible movements among the rocks, the glint of weapon metal quickly concealed the unnatural stillness that preceded violence. Protocol demanded she radio for authorization before engaging. Authorization that would take 15 to 20 minutes to work its way through the bureaucratic chain of command. By then, the convoy would be deep in the kill zone with no hope of survival. Kate made the call that would end her career. She engaged without authorization. 7 shots. 7 dead insurgents. The entire enemy force eliminated before they could fire a single round at the diplomats below. The final target had been disguised as a civilian, a calculated ploy to avoid detection. Kate had seen through the disguise, noticing the outline of a trigger mechanism in the man's loose clothing. Her final shot saved the convoy from an IED that would have decimated the lead vehicle. Later investigation identified the disguised insurgent as the nephew of a tribal leader, crucial to ongoing peace negotiations. A man whose cooperation was deemed more valuable than the lives of American personnel Kate had saved. The political fallout had been immediate and severe. Someone had to take the blame for the diplomatic complications, and Kate Morgan became the convenient scapegoat. In a sparse Pentagon office, Colonel Victor Harris had delivered her sentence with bloodless efficiency. Your actions, while tactically justified, have created an international incident that threatens years of diplomatic efforts. Harris had told her, his eyes never quite meeting hers. You have 2 options: face court-martial for violating direct orders, or resign quietly with an other than honorable discharge. Your record will be sealed, your commendations rescinded. Kate had chosen resignation, knowing a court-martial would only create further embarrassment for the military and the families of those she had saved. She walked away from 17 years of distinguished service with nothing but the skills that had once made her a legend. 6 months in the mountains hadn't dulled the sting of betrayal. If anything, isolation had crystallized it into something harder, colder, and more permanent than the Rocky Mountain winters. The satellite phone rang its harsh electronic tone, cutting through the quiet mountain morning. Only one person had this number. William, Kate answered, her tone softening slightly. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me. Colonel William Bill Harrison's gravelly chuckle carried the weight of his 72 years. Not likely, kid. Some of us still remember what loyalty means. Bill was a relic from another era, a Cold War veteran whose intelligence career had taken him from Korean listening posts to clandestine operations against the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe. He'd been her father's handler during the most dangerous CIA operations of the 1970s, and after her father's death during a compromised mission in 1975, Bill had become Kate's surrogate parent and mentor. He was the only one from her old life who still maintained contact. How's mountain life treating you? Bill asked, the concern evident beneath his casual tone. Peaceful, quiet, nobody questioning my judgment or throwing me to the wolves when politics demanded. Kate, there was a pause. I've been looking into Checkpoint Alpha. Things don't add up. The nephew's background, the timing of the ambush, it feels manufactured. Kate's attention sharpened. What are you saying? I'm saying I think you were set up. Someone wanted that convoy hit, or wanted you to take action that would end your career. Maybe both. She'd suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed sent a cold chill through her that had nothing to do with the mountain air. There's more, Bill continued, his voice dropping. I've picked up chatter about a high-value transport coming through your area. Special cargo, enhanced security, classified route. Except the route isn't as classified as they think. What kind of cargo? Unknown, but it's drawing serious attention. The kind of attention that gets people killed. Kate moved to the window, scanning the vast mountain landscape stretching before her cabin. Went ho. Today. And there's a storm system moving in that'll complicate any response if things go sideways. The timing was too perfect, too similar to Checkpoint Alpha. Kate felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the combat instinct warning her of impending danger. Watch yourself, Kate, Bill said quietly, and keep your rifle close. I've got a feeling you might need it before the day's over. The line went dead, leaving Kate alone with the growing certainty that history was about to repeat itself in the worst possible way. By mid-morning, the first snowflakes began drifting from a sky that had turned the color of brushed steel. Kate positioned herself on a rocky outcropping that provided an elevated vantage point overlooking the winding road locals called Death's Curve, a particularly treacherous section of Root Canyon. Through her high-powered spotting scope, Kate tracked the progress of the convoy as it navigated the serpentine mountain road. Three up-armored Humvees escorted a heavily reinforced MRAP mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle, the formation moving with the practiced precision of professional security teams. Yet even from this distance, Kate could identify critical vulnerabilities in their approach. The vehicles maintained consistent spacing without the tactical variations that would complicate targeting. Their speed was too uniform, their route too predictable. Most concerning, the lead vehicle wasn't deploying proper reconnaissance at choke points. They were driving blind into potential ambush sites. These weren't the mistakes of amateurs. This was the complacency of professionals who had grown too comfortable in supposedly secure environments. Kate keyed her military-grade radio scanning for the convoy's frequency. Finding it, she transmitted a terse warning. Convoy Delta 6, be advised you are approaching an elevated risk area with multiple overwatch positions. Recommend immediate tactical spacing adjustment and advanced reconnaissance. The response was immediate and dismissive. Unidentified station, this is Delta 6 actual. Maintain communications discipline and clear this secure frequency. Of course. Why would they listen to an unauthorized warning from an unknown source? From their perspective, she was either a civilian interfering with military operations and, or worse, an enemy attempting to disrupt their movement. Kate switched to her signals intelligence equipment, modified surveillance gear she'd acquired during her years in special operations. The directional antenna could intercept short-range communications within a 5-mile radius, including the encrypted channels used by military and potential hostile forces. At first, there was nothing but standard operational chatter from the convoy. Then, cutting through the background static, she detected fragments of a conversation on an unexpected frequency, communications that shouldn't have been there. Primary target confirmed. Packages in the MRAP as intelligence indicated. Weather conditions optimal for intercept at phase line echo. The voice carried the distinctive accent of Eastern European military training. Russian maybe, or one of the former Soviet states. The tactical terminology was unmistakably Spetsnaz, Russian Special Forces. Kate's blood ran cold. She'd encountered that precise operational language before during her deployment to Afghanistan in '89. It was the signature communication style of Soviet-trained operators, a methodical approach to ambush operations that emphasized synchronized attacks from multiple angles. Adjusting her intercept equipment, Kate captured more fragments. Teams in position, initiating at 11:45 hours. Primary objective is the package. Secondary objectives are the communication equipment and any survivors for intelligence collection. The timing would put the attack just as the convoy reached the most isolated section of the route, minutes before the storm would make air support impossible. The mention of survivors for intelligence collection confirmed the worst. These weren't insurgents looking for a quick hit and run. This was a professional military operation with strategic objectives. Kate switched back to the military frequency, making one final attempt. Delta 6, this is an emergency override. You are driving into a coordinated ambush by multiple hostile teams. I repeat, visual confirmation of hostiles in overwatch positions. Take immediate evasive action. Only static answered her transmission. The snowfall intensified, reducing visibility and creating the perfect conditions for an ambush. Kate made her decision. Returning to her cabin, she quickly assembled her rifle and gathered essential gear: extra ammunition, medical supplies, communications equipment, and cold weather survival tools. Time was running out. Whatever was happening, she couldn't stand by and watch another convoy be destroyed. Not again. Not when she had the skills to make a difference, even if it meant risking everything. Again. At Mountain Fortress Joint Base, the Tactical Operations Center hummed with controlled urgency as alarms signaled an emergency situation developing in the field. Screens displayed real-time satellite imagery of Root Canyon, now partially obscured by the advancing snowstorm. Lieutenant Colonel James Reynolds, a 58-year-old veteran of numerous Cold War confrontations, studied the tactical display with the analytical precision that had kept him alive during 3 decades of covert operations. The weather patterns were deteriorating faster than predicted, creating a rapidly closing window for any potential response. Status on Convoy Delta 6, he demanded, his voice cutting through the chatter of the operations center. Captain Sarah Mitchell, communications specialist, looked up from her station. Sir, Delta 6 reports possible communication intrusion, but no visual confirmation of hostile activity. They're proceeding on a schedule to checkpoint 2. Reynolds frowned. Something felt wrong about the situation. An intuition developed through years of high-stakes operations where the smallest details often spelled the difference between success and catastrophe. What about these unauthorized transmissions? Any identification on the source? Negative, sir, Mitchell replied. Signal characteristics suggest military-grade equipment, but no authentication codes. Could be anyone from a local with salvaged gear to, well, someone who knows our protocols. The implication hung in the air. A former operator, perhaps. Someone with insider knowledge. The doors to the TOC swung open as Captain Michael "Iron Mike" Callahan strode in, already dressed in full tactical gear. At 44, Callahan carried himself with the confident economy of movement that marked career special operations personnel, a man who had spent more time in combat zones than comfortable offices. Sir, he addressed Reynolds, Alpha Team is prepped and ready for rapid deployment. What's the situation? Reynolds gestured to the tactical display. High-value convoy en route Canyon. Possible hostile presence reported by an unconfirmed source. Communications interference consistent with electronic warfare tactics. Callahan studied the map, his experienced eyes immediately identifying the tactical vulnerabilities along the route. That's bad terrain for a firefight, sir. Limited extraction options, compromised communications, and that storm's going to ground any air support within the hour. Which is exactly why I need your team ready to move, Reynolds replied. If this goes sideways, Delta 6 will need immediate ground support. The colonel hesitated, then lowered his voice. There's something else. The package they're transporting. It's not standard diplomatic material. He entered a security code into his console, bringing up a classified briefing document. They're escorting a Russian nuclear physicist who defected last week in Turkey, Dr. Andrei Baranov, former head of Russia's tactical nuclear program. He's carrying critical intelligence about legacy Soviet weapon systems potentially still operational on U.S. soil. Callahan's expression hardened. So if someone wanted to prevent that intelligence from reaching us, they'd hit this convoy hard, take the package, and disappear into the storm before we could mount an effective response, Reynolds finished. Exactly. A communications officer interrupted with urgent news. Sir, Signals Intelligence is picking up encrypted transmissions in the vicinity of the convoy route. Non-standard frequencies, but the pattern matches known Spetsnaz communication protocols. Reynolds and Callahan exchanged grim looks. Russian special forces on U.S. soil was an escalation beyond typical threat scenarios. Alpha Team deploys immediately, Reynolds ordered. Full tactical package, cold weather gear, and communication suite. Your primary objective is to secure the package and any surviving personnel if Delta 6 is compromised. Callahan nodded sharply. Understood, sir. We're wheels up in 10. As Callahan exited to brief his team, Reynolds turned back to the tactical display, watching the slow-moving convoy icons approaching what every instinct told him was a carefully prepared killing zone. And Captain, he called after Callahan, be prepared for anything. Whoever planned this chose their timing and location perfectly. This isn't some random attack. It's a professional military operation. Outside the operations center, Callahan assembled his elite ranger team, the most experienced special operators available for rapid response missions. Master Sergeant David Torres, the team's 38-year-old senior advisor with extensive Middle East combat experience, was already checking weapons and equipment. Staff Sergeant Ryan Spencer, the team's scout and tracking specialist, studied detailed terrain maps of the route. Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, 29, dual qualified in communications and weapons systems, configured their secure radio equipment for mountain operations. Private First Class Kevin Chen, the team's newest member but already distinguished in Afghanistan deployments, loaded medical supplies, while Sergeant Marcus Williams, 34, the heavy weapons specialist, secured the team's support armaments. Listen up, Callahan addressed his team with calm authority. We've got a high-value convoy potentially facing a sophisticated attack force in deteriorating conditions. Intelligence suggests former Russian special forces involvement, which means we're dealing with Tier 1 operators. He detailed the mission parameters, emphasizing the critical importance of the package they needed to secure. The physicist and his intelligence are priority one, Callahan concluded. If this information about hidden Soviet weapons is accurate, we're talking about a potential national security situation that makes everything else secondary. Weather reports, sir, Mitchell asked, already anticipating the challenging conditions ahead. Blizzard conditions expected within 2 hours. Temperatures dropping to -15 with wind chill. Visibility will be reduced to under 50 meters. Communications will be degraded or entirely compromised. Torres, the veteran of countless high-risk operations, voiced what everyone was thinking. Perfect conditions for an ambush. Whoever planned this knows exactly what they're doing. Which is why we need to move now, Callahan responded. Gear up full winter tactical loadout. We'll deploy via 2 vehicles along the emergency access road, then proceed on foot for final approach to maintain tactical surprise. As the team dispersed to complete final preparations, Mitchell approached Callahan privately. Sir, about those unauthorized transmissions. The signal characteristics seem familiar. Almost like what, Mitchell? She hesitated. Like someone using old-school special operations protocols. The transmission pattern had the hallmarks of someone trained in our advanced communications procedures. Callahan's expression darkened. You think it could be one of ours, a former operator? It's possible, sir. The precision of the frequency selection, the timing of the transmissions. It wasn't amateur work. The implications were troubling. A former American operator potentially involved in the situation added a layer of complexity they didn't need. Or perhaps Callahan thought someone was trying to warn them. Either way, they would find out soon enough. The snow fell in thickening sheets as Kate positioned herself on a windswept ridge, overlooking the stretch of road where the convoy would be most vulnerable. Through her rifle scope, she could see the approaching vehicles now moving more cautiously as visibility deteriorated. Her tactical assessment confirmed her worst fears. Hidden among the rocks and trees on both sides of the canyon were at least 20 combatants in white winter camouflage, their positions expertly chosen to create overlapping fields of fire. At strategic points, she identified heavy weapons emplacements, a PKM machine gun position that could sweep the entire road, and what appeared to be RPG teams waiting to disable the lead and rear vehicles. It was a textbook ambush setup executed with professional precision. Kate settled into her shooting position, running through the mental calculations that had once made her the most lethal long-distance killer in American military history. Range approximately 1,200 meters to the nearest hostile position. Wind gusting from the northwest at 25-30 knots, requiring significant horizontal adjustment. Temperature well below freezing, affecting powder burn and bullet drop. Visibility rapidly deteriorating in the snowstorm. These were conditions that would render most snipers effectively blind. For Kate Morgan, they were simply variables in an equation. Through her scope, she identified what appeared to be the operation commander, a figure checking his watch and speaking into a radio positioned behind a rocky outcropping approximately 100 meters from her position. His bearing and positioning marked him as the tactical leader, the critical link in the ambush chain. Kate regulated her breathing, slowing her heart rate through techniques perfected over thousands of hours behind a rifle. The world narrowed to the small circle of her scope, time stretching as she anticipated the target's movements. She exhaled halfway and held her finger, taking up the first pressure on the trigger. The TAC 338 roared, the sound echoing across the canyon as the 338 Lapua Magnum round cut through snowflakes in wind to find its mark with devastating precision. Through her scope, Kate watched the commander's body jerk backward, then collapse behind the rocks, the radio tumbling from lifeless fingers. The shot's effect was immediate. The coordinated ambush, now without its central command element, fell into momentary confusion. Radio chatter spiked across multiple frequencies as subordinate leaders tried to determine what had happened and who was now in charge. Kate used the precious seconds of disorganization to acquire her next target, the PKM machine gunner, whose position threatened to sweep the entire convoy with devastating fire. Another calculated breath, another pressure on the trigger, another life ended at extreme distance. The convoy, now alerted to the danger by the sound of her rifle, began the emergency defensive maneuvers. The lead Humvee accelerated while the others adopted protective positions around the MRAP, carrying the high-value package. Kate keyed her radio to the convoy's frequency. Delta 6, this is Overwatch Position Bravo. You have approximately 20 hostile forces in prepared positions on both sides of the canyon. Heavy weapons at your 10 and 2 o'clock. Recommend immediate tactical withdrawal to defensible position at grid coordinates 3742-15 north, 106-5322 west. After a moment of silence, a tense voice responded. This is Delta 6 Actual. Identify yourself and your unit immediately. No time, Kate replied, acquiring her third target, an RPG gunner preparing to disable the lead vehicle. I'm providing covering fire. Follow my coordinates if you want to survive the next 5 minutes. The TAC 338 barked again, eliminating the threat before the RPG operator could fire. Despite her covering fire, the ambush forces recovered quickly, professional discipline overcoming the initial disruption. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions, forcing the convoy into a defensive posture as bullets struck the armored vehicles from several angles. Kate continued to engage priority targets, her rifle systematically eliminating the most dangerous threats to the convoy. Each shot was calculated, precise, and devastating, the work of someone whose entire being had been honed into a perfect instrument of long-distance killing. But the odds were overwhelming. Despite losing 6 key operators to her precision fire, the attacking force began executing a modified assault plan, adapting to the unexpected sniper threat with professional flexibility. Through her communications intercept equipment, Kate picked up fragments of Russian language transmissions. Sniper on the Western Ridge, possibly American military. Initiate counter-sniper protocol. Alpha. The mention of American military confirmed her suspicion that these were no ordinary mercenaries. They had recognized professional military shooting techniques and were responding accordingly. Worse, they were deploying a counter-sniper team to locate and eliminate her. Kate knew she needed to relocate soon, but the convoy still needed her fire support. Through her scope, she could see the MRAP taking heavy fire, its armor holding, but clearly under stress from the coordinated attack. A new transmission cut through her radio, not from the convoy, but from an approaching force. All stations, this is Ranger Team Alpha, proceeding to convoy location via eastern approach. ETA 10 minutes. Request situational update and enemy disposition. Kate recognized the call sign of an elite quick reaction force from Mountain Fortress. Help was coming, but in 10 minutes the convoy might already be overrun. She keyed her radio again. Ranger Alpha, this is Overwatch Bravo. Convoy under heavy attack from approximately 20 specialized operators. Identified Russian tactical procedures and equipment. Be advised they've deployed counter-sniper elements that will target your approach. Captain Callahan's voice came back sharp with suspicion. Overwatch Bravo, you are on a secured military frequency. Identify yourself immediately or face hostile response. Kate hesitated only briefly before making a decision that would irrevocably change her situation. Ranger Alpha, this is former Master Sergeant Catherine Morgan, call sign, Deadshot. I'm in position providing precision fire support for Delta 6. The silence that followed was profound. Even over the radio, Kate could sense the shock her name had caused. Her reputation within special operations circles was legendary, both for her unprecedented kill record and for the controversial circumstances of her dismissal. Morgan HYN, Callahan finally responded, disbelief evident in his voice. The Catherine Morgan from the Afghanistan records. Confirmed target area is hot, she replied tersely, ignoring the question as she eliminated another enemy fighter approaching the convoy's vulnerable rear position. Delta 6 is pinned down and taking fire from multiple directions. They can't hold their position much longer. What she didn't add was that she couldn't maintain her supporting fire indefinitely either. The counter-sniper team was methodically working to triangulate her position using sophisticated sound location equipment to narrow down her hiding place despite the storm. Understood. Callahan responded, his voice now all business despite the shock of her identity. We're proceeding to support Delta 6. Can you provide covering fire for our approach? Affirmative, but be advised my position will be compromised soon. I count at least 2 counter-sniper teams moving to flank my location. Through her scope, Kate could see the convoy's situation deteriorating rapidly. The lead Humvee had taken critical damage, its front end destroyed by what appeared to be a shaped charge. Personnel were trapped inside, unable to exit without facing concentrated enemy fire. Simultaneously, her signals intelligence equipment picked up a new transmission. This one in English, using American military terminology, but with a slight Russian accent. All teams' priority target identified. Catherine Morgan, former U.S. military sniper, is providing overwatch from Western Ridge. Concentrate efforts on neutralizing this threat before proceeding with primary objective. Kate felt a chill that had nothing to do with the freezing temperature. They knew her, specifically, by name. This wasn't just about the convoy or its high-value package. Someone had recognized her shooting signature, the distinctive pattern and precision that had once made her famous within military circles. As snow continued to fall around her position, Kate Morgan faced the disturbing realization that this might not be a random coincidence. The similarities to Checkpoint Alpha, the professional nature of the attack forced the specific recognition of her identity, all pointed to a connection she couldn't yet fully comprehend. But one thing was becoming increasingly clear: she had just placed herself back in the crosshairs of forces that had once destroyed her career. And this time they seemed intent on destroying much more than that. Captain Callahan led his ranger team through the thickening snowfall, their white winter camouflage blending with the environment as they moved with practiced silence despite the challenging terrain. The revelation that Catherine Morgan, the legendary Deadshot whose career had ended in controversy, was somehow involved had sent shockwaves through the team. "Morgan's involved, the Catherine Morgan," Torres whispered as they navigated a particularly treacherous slope. "I thought she disappeared after that mess in Afghanistan." "Focus on the mission," Callahan replied tersely. "Whatever her situation, she's providing intel. We need to reach that convoy alive." The distant crack of Morgan's rifle periodically echoed across the canyon, followed by the more chaotic sound of automatic weapons fire from the ambush force. Each precision shot from her position bought precious seconds for both the besieged convoy and the approaching Rangers. Mitchell, monitoring their tactical radio, suddenly raised her hand in warning. "Sir," picking up multiple signals ahead. "Encrypted, but the pattern matches Russian military algorithms I've seen in NATO joint exercises." Before Callahan could respond, the distinctive whistle of an incoming mortar round cut through the air. "Cover, Tord," he shouted, the team diving for whatever protection the rocky terrain offered as the explosion sent snow and shrapnel spraying across their position. "They know we're here," Torres confirmed, scanning the ridgeline through his tactical optics. "I count at least 8 hostiles moving to cut off our approach to the convoy." The ambush had been expanded to intercept the reinforcements, a level of tactical flexibility that confirmed these were no ordinary adversaries. Callahan quickly assessed their deteriorating situation, weighing options that all carried significant risk. Mitchell established communication with Morgan. "We need her overwatch to identify the mortar position." As Mitchell worked the radio, the team took defensive positions among the rocks, preparing for the imminent engagement. Private Chen, despite being the newest team member, displayed the calm focus of a natural soldier as he set up his medical equipment while keeping his weapon ready. "Sir," Chen said quietly, "if these really are Russian special forces, why are they operating on U.S. soil? This is an act of war." It was the question everyone was thinking but hadn't voiced, the implications too severe to contemplate in the middle of a firefight. "That's above our pay grade," Callahan replied. "Right now we focus on reaching that convoy and securing the package." Mitchell's voice cut through their conversation. "Captain, I've got Morgan on the line." Callahan took the radio. "Morgan, this is Callahan. We're taking mortar fire approximately 800 meters east of the convoy position. Can you identify the launch site?" Kate's voice came back crisp and professional, despite the static interference from the storm. "Ranger Alpha 1 have visual on your position. Mortar team is located at your 2 o'clock, approximately 600 meters, using a rock formation for cover. Be advised they have spotters on the high ground coordinating fire." The precision of her situational awareness was impressive, exactly what Callahan would expect from someone with her reputation. "Can you engage?" he asked. "Negative," came the reply. "I'm repositioning due to counter-sniper teams approaching my location. We'll re-establish overwatch in approximately 3 minutes." Another mortar round whistled overhead, this one landing closer to their position. They wouldn't have 3 minutes before the enemy zeroed in on their location. Williams, Callahan called to his heavy weapons specialist. Prep the Carl Gustav. We're going to take out that mortar position ourselves. As Williams readied the anti-armor weapon Spencer, the team's scout returned from his forward reconnaissance with troubling news. Sir, the convoy situation is critical. Lead and rear vehicles disabled. The MRAP is intact but surrounded. I counted at least 15 hostiles in direct engagement with convoy personnel. Callahan processed this information quickly. And the package, still secure in the MRAP as far as I could tell, but they're trying to breach it systematically. Professional approach, shape charges positioned to disable rather than destroy. The tactical picture was becoming clearer. This wasn't a simple ambush. It was a carefully orchestrated extraction operation designed to capture rather than kill. The high-value Russian defector and whatever intelligence he carried were the primary objective. Change of plans, Callahan decided. Williams, take Torres and engage the mortar position. Mitchell, Chen, Spencer, you're with me. We're going to push through to the convoy while they're focused on breaching the MRAP. As the team split into their assigned elements, a new transmission came through from Cape Morgan. Ranger Alpha, be advised, I'm intercepting enemy communications. They're calling for reinforcements. Additional teams approaching from the north, approximately 10 more operators. Time to arrival estimated at 15 minutes. The stakes had just been raised significantly. With 10 more enemy operators en route, the window for successful extraction was rapidly closing. Copy that, Callahan responded. Any intel on who's running this operation? Kate's voice came back now, tinged with an emotion Callahan couldn't quite identify. Affirmative. I've identified the operational commander through communications intercepts. Viktor Petrov, former Spetsnaz colonel. I've encountered him before. Afghanistan, 1989. The name meant nothing to Callahan, but the way Morgan delivered it carried unmistakable weight. There was history there, personal history. Is that relevant to our current situation? He pressed. Kate's response was chilling in its simplicity. It explains everything. Petrov isn't just after your package, Captain. This entire operation has been designed with secondary objectives in mind. What kind of secondary objectives? The kind that include eliminating me, she replied flatly. Checkpoint Alpha wasn't an accident or a diplomatic incident. It was a setup. Petrov's setup to end my career, and now he's here to finish what he started. As if to punctuate her statement, a massive explosion rocked the convoy's position. Through his tactical optics, Callahan could see the attackers had breached the outer armor of the MRAP. Morgan, whatever personal history you have with Petrov, it waits, Callahan ordered. Right now, we need to reach that convoy before they extract the package. Understood, she replied, her voice returning to professional detachment. I'm in position on the eastern ridge. We'll provide covering fire for your approach. Be advised, Captain, these aren't just mercenaries. The tactical communication suggests former Spetsnaz operators, and they're equipped with cutting-edge Russian military hardware. The implications were disturbing. This wasn't a rogue operation by ex-military contractors. The level of sophistication, equipment, and coordination pointed to state-sponsored activity, a direct incursion onto American soil by Russian military assets. As Callahan signaled his team to begin their advance toward the besieged convoy, the gravity of the situation settled over him. They were facing professional killers on their home territory in deteriorating weather, with limited support and a high-value asset in imminent danger of capture. And their only overwatch was a disgraced former operator with a personal connection to the enemy commander. This was rapidly evolving beyond a standard rescue operation into something with potential national security implications, something that would demand answers when, if, they made it out alive. But first they had to survive the next 30 minutes. The distinctive crack of Cape Morgan's rifle echoed across the canyon once more, followed by the distant thud of a body falling. Deadshot was back in the fight, for better or worse. And as the Rangers moved through the swirling snow toward what promised to be a vicious close-quarters battle, Callahan couldn't help but wonder if Morgan's involvement was their salvation or a complication that would get them all killed. Either way, the die was cast. They were committed now, advancing toward an enemy whose true objectives remained shrouded in mystery, just like the snowstorm that enveloped them all. The frigid mountain air burned in Kate's lungs as she moved swiftly through the deepening snow, her white thermal suit rendering her nearly invisible against the backdrop of the Colorado winter. 15 years of special operations experience had taught her to move like a ghost, leaving minimal tracks despite the harsh conditions. She had abandoned her initial position just moments before a Russian counter-sniper team located it. Now repositioned on a different ridge with clear sight lines to both the convoy and Callahan's advancing Rangers, she settled into a prone firing position, brushing snow from her scope with practiced precision. Through her enhanced optics, Kate could see the Russian operators working with methodical efficiency to breach the MRAP. Their movements revealed the unmistakable training of elite Spetsnaz units, the brutal effectiveness that had made Russia's special forces among the most feared in the world. But it was the figure directing operations from a protected command position that froze Kate's blood more effectively than the Colorado winter ever could. Colonel Viktor Petrov. Even at this distance, she recognized his distinctive silhouette and commanding presence. At 60 years old, Petrov remained imposing, a relic of Cold War special operations who had transitioned seamlessly into the murky world of private military contracting after the Soviet collapse. Her mind flashed back to Afghanistan 1989. Operation Javelin, the classified mission that had made her reputation as the deadliest sniper in American military history. 17 years earlier, Hindu Kush Mountains, Afghanistan-Pakistan border. 28-year-old Kate Morgan lay motionless in her camouflaged hide, having maintained the same position for 36 hours without sleep. The mission brief had been explicit: eliminate Nikolai Petrov, a Soviet intelligence officer, coordinating weapons shipments to anti-American insurgent groups. Intelligence had confirmed Petrov would be meeting with local commanders at a remote compound. What they hadn't anticipated was the extreme security measures: 3 tiers of defensive positions, counter-sniper teams, and a 1.7-kilometer approach that offered no viable shooting positions. No viable positions, that is, except the nearly impossible one Kate had identified on a ridgeline, exposed to gusting crosswinds that would challenge even the most advanced ballistic calculations. For 2 days, she had studied the wind patterns, memorizing the rhythmic shifts that occurred at 10-minute intervals as air currents moved through the mountain passes. She had accounted for every variable: temperature, barometric pressure, the Coriolis effect at that latitude, and even the rotation of the Earth during the bullet's flight time. When Nikolai Petrov finally emerged from the compound, Kate was ready. Controlling her breathing, slowing her heartbeat, she squeezed the trigger at the precise moment when all variables aligned. The 7.62-millimeter round traveled for 3.4 seconds before striking Petrov with lethal precision, a shot that military ballistics experts would later declare technically impossible given the environmental conditions. What Kate hadn't known was that Viktor Petrov, Nikolai's younger brother, had witnessed the kill from nearby. According to after-action intelligence, he had spent hours searching for the shooter's position, eventually recovering the single spent cartridge she had been forced to leave behind during extraction. Viktor Petrov had sworn vengeance that day, not just against America, but specifically against the shooter who had taken his brother's life. Now, 17 years later, Kate understood the full scope of that vengeance. Checkpoint Alpha hadn't been a random incident. It had been carefully orchestrated to end her career, to strip her of everything that defined her. Through her scope, Kate watched Petrov directing his men with cold efficiency. His presence here wasn't coincidence. This was the culmination of years of planning, a personal vendetta wrapped within a larger geopolitical objective. She keyed her radio. "Callahan, I need to brief you on Petrov. This isn't just about your Russian defector." "I'm listening," came the captain's terse reply. "Afghanistan, 1989. I eliminated his brother, Nikolai Petrov, a Soviet intelligence officer running weapons to insurgent groups. Victor was there, witnessed it. He's been tracking me ever since." "You're saying this is personal?" "I'm saying Checkpoint Alpha was a setup," Kate replied, her voice steady despite the revelation. "Petrov fed false intelligence to the insurgent group, knowing I was on overwatch duty. He anticipated my response when I identified a threat to American personnel." "You're telling me a former Russian Special Forces officer manipulated events to get you kicked out of the military? That's a hell of a grudge." "Russians are known for their patience, Captain, especially when it comes to revenge." Through her scope, Kate could see Petrov consulting what appeared to be a tablet device, studying information with intense focus. She shifted her aim, calculating a shot that would end this threat permanently, but hesitated as Mitchell's voice broke through on the radio. "Captain, I've intercepted partial communications. They're discussing a secondary asset, something about confirmation of tactical response patterns. I think they're running an analysis on our operational procedures." The implication was clear. This wasn't just about extracting the Russian defector. Petrov was gathering intelligence on American rapid response protocols, data that would be invaluable to Russian military planners. Morgan Callahan's voice came through with renewed urgency. "If you have a shot at Petrov, take it." Kate's finger tightened on the trigger, her crosshairs centered on Petrov's chest. At this range, 950 meters through moderate snowfall and with 22-knot gusting winds, it would be a challenging shot for most snipers. For Kate Morgan, it was routine. Yet something made her hesitate. Petrov's positioning was too exposed, too convenient. The man she had studied for years would never make such a basic tactical error. Scanning the area around him, Kate noticed the subtle distortion of light from a small device positioned nearby, the kind of advanced holographic projector used by special forces for battlefield deception. "Negative on the shot," she reported. "That's not Petrov. It's a holographic decoy designed to draw fire and reveal my position." "How can you be sure?" Callahan questioned. "Because I know him. Petrov would never expose himself like that. He's watching, waiting for me to make a mistake." As if to confirm her assessment, one of the Russian operators near the holographic decoy suddenly raised a specialized detection device, scanning the ridgelines, looking for the heat signature or electromagnetic reflection of a sniper scope. "Smart play, Victor," Kate murmured to herself, already planning her next move in this deadly chess match. She switched to thermal imaging, scanning the battlefield with methodical precision until she identified an anomaly. A concealed position 300 meters behind the main Russian force where a single figure monitored operations without directly participating. The real Petrov. But before she could adjust her position for a shot movement on her peripheral caught her attention. Through her thermal scope, she detected the distinctive heat signature of a highly trained operator moving with exceptional stealth through the terrain to her east. This was no ordinary counter-sniper. The movement pattern, the careful terrain usage, the patience, they marked someone with elite training and exceptional skill. "Callahan," Kate transmitted quietly, "be advised, I've identified an advanced operator moving to flank my position. This isn't standards of Spetsnaz. This is something else." Before Callahan could respond, Kate's trained ear caught the almost imperceptible sound of snow compressing under a carefully placed boot, less than 50 meters from her position. Whoever this was, they were good. Very good. "I need to go silent and relocate," she informed Callahan. "We'll re-establish contact when secure." Kate carefully backed away from her shooting position, using every technique she had mastered over decades to move without sound or disturbance. But as she created distance, a voice called out to her, speaking perfect English with only the faintest trace of a Russian accent. "Catherine Morgan, after all these years, we finally meet." The voice carried across the snow-covered terrain with surprising intimacy, as if the speaker were having a casual conversation rather than engaging in a lethal game of cat and mouse. "I studied your shot in Afghanistan for years," the voice continued. "The ballistics were extraordinary. Impossible, really, except you made it possible." Kate remained silent, using the voice to triangulate the speaker's position while continuing her strategic withdrawal. "My name is Alexei Koshkin. Perhaps you've heard of me. I hold the long-distance elimination record for the Russian Federation, 1.8 kilometers in Chechnya, 100 meters farther than your Afghanistan shot." The name registered immediately. Alexei Koshkin, the legendary Russian sniper whose reputation in military circles rivaled her own. The Russians called him Ghost Wolf for his ability to hunt targets through impossible terrain without ever being detected. "Victor said you would be good," Alexei continued, his voice moving position, circling her with predatory patience. "But I've been watching you work. You're not just good. You're the best I've ever seen." Kate spotted a subtle movement among the snow-covered rocks 30 meters to her right, just the barest disturbance of a snowflake pattern that betrayed Alexei's position. Her rifle was already aligned before the conscious thought had formed. The TAC-338 roared the bullet, striking exactly where she had aimed, only to hit nothing but rock as Alexei had already anticipated her shot and moved. A soft chuckle drifted through the falling snow. And fast, remarkably fast. This is going to be interesting. Kate keyed her radio one final time. Callahan's situation compromised. Russian counter-sniper confirmed. Alexei Koshkin, their top marksman. I'll keep him occupied while you secure the package. Without waiting for a response, she discarded her radio, knowing Koshkin would be tracking any electromagnetic emissions. This was now a primal contest between two apex predators, a lethal game where the slightest mistake would mean death. As Kate disappeared into the swirling snow, she could almost feel Koshkin's admiration through the freezing air. Two masters of the same lethal art finally testing their skills against worthy opposition. Captain Callahan and his team reached a protective ridgeline overlooking the ambush site, taking cover behind an outcropping of weathered granite. The tactical situation below was deteriorating rapidly. The convoy security team had established a defensive perimeter around the damaged MRAP, but they were clearly outmatched by the Russian operators systematically working to breach the vehicle's reinforced hull. Assessment. Callahan ordered, his voice low and controlled, despite the urgency of the situation. Spencer, the team's scout, reported first after studying the enemy positions through his thermal optics. I count 23 tangos in active engagement. 4-man team working on the MRAP with breaching equipment. 2 heavy weapons positions. A PKM at the north end of the canyon and what looks like a cord heavy machine gun covering the southern escape route. Counter-sniper teams. At least 3 2-man elements in overwatch positions. They're searching for Morgan, but she's keeping them busy. Periodically, the distinctive crack of Kate's rifle echoed through the canyon, followed by the chaos of Russian operators scrambling for cover. She hadn't eliminated many targets, but her precision fire was forcing the Russians to keep their heads down, disrupting their operational tempo. What about the package? Callahan asked. Torres, who had been monitoring the MRAP through a specialized imaging system that could penetrate the vehicle's hull, provided the critical intelligence. I'm reading 3 heat signatures inside. One is stationary, likely wounded. The other 2 are moving, probably security personnel. The Russians haven't breached the main compartment yet, but they're getting close. Mitchell added her communications assessment. Sir, I'm picking up Russian tactical communications. They're calling for their extraction team. Helicopter inbound, ETA approximately 20 minutes. Weather's giving them problems, but they're pushing through. Callahan processed this information with the rapid tactical assessment that had kept him alive through 3 combat deployments. They were outnumbered and outgunned, facing elite Russian operators with air extraction capabilities. Worse, they had lost direct communication with a Kate Morgan, whose sniper support had been keeping the enemy partially suppressed. Options, he asked his team, valuing their collective expertise. Williams, the heavy weapons specialist, outlined the most direct approach. We could use the Carl Gustav to take out their heavy weapons positions, then make a frontal assault while they're disoriented. High risk, but we might reach the MRAP before they complete the breach. Torres shook his head. Too exposed. They'd cut us down before we covered half the distance. What about calling for air support from Mountain Fortress? Chen suggested. Mitchell answered before Callahan could. Negative. This weather has grounded everything except Russian heavy-lift helicopters, specifically designed for these conditions. That's why they chose today for this operation. Callahan studied the terrain, looking for tactical advantages they could exploit. The canyon's geography offered limited options for approach, which was precisely why the Russians had chosen it for their ambush. Then something Kate had mentioned returned to him, a set of coordinates she had provided during her initial contact with the convoy. Mitchell pulled up grid coordinates 374215 north, 1065322 west on the tactical map. The communications specialist quickly referenced their digital mapping system. Sir, that's the Stone Bridge, an old railway crossing about half a kilometer north of the current position. It's not on the main road. What's significant about it? Torres asked. Natural choke point, elevated position, and according to this geological survey, there's a network of maintenance tunnels underneath it from when it was an active railway line. Callahan's expression hardened with decision. That's our play. We need to get the convoy to that bridge. Defensible position, overhead cover, and emergency evacuation options through the tunnel system if things go completely sideways. How do we get them there? Spencer questioned. They're pinned down pretty effectively. We create a diversion, Callahan replied, already formulating the plan. Williams set up the Carl Gustav on that western ridge. When I give the signal, take out their heavy weapons position on the northern end. Torres, you and Chen prepare smoke grenades and flashbangs for deployment along their eastern flank. Spencer, you're our fastest mover. You'll make contact with the convoy security team once we've created confusion and guide them to the bridge. And you, sir, Mitchell asked. You and I are going to tap into their communication frequency and create some additional chaos. Time to put your Russian language skills to work, Sergeant. As his team prepared for their respective roles, Callahan couldn't help but wonder about Kate Morgan's situation. The legendary sniper was somewhere in the swirling snow, engaged in a deadly duel with Russia's premier marksman, a contest where milliseconds and millimeters made the difference between life and death. Sir, Mitchell said quietly, interrupting his thoughts. About Morgan, do you believe her about Checkpoint Alpha being a setup? Callahan considered the question carefully. Her record before that incident was impeccable. 317 confirmed eliminations, dozens of high-value targets, perfect operational discipline. Then suddenly she violates direct orders and creates an international incident. It never added up. And now Petrov shows up here commanding a Russian spec ops team on American soil, Mitchell observed. That's one hell of a coincidence. In our line of work, Sergeant, there are no coincidences. Callahan checked his weapon one final time. Petrov orchestrated her downfall once. He won't get the chance to finish the job. As the team completed their preparations, Callahan established communication with the convoy security team, explaining their extraction plan and coordinating timing. The convoy commander, despite initial skepticism about taking directions from an unknown ranger team, quickly recognized the tactical soundness of the approach. On my mark, Callahan instructed his team, watching as Williams lined up the perfect shot with the Carl Gustav. 3, 2, 1, execute! The anti-armor weapon roared, sending its high-explosive round directly into the northern machine gun nest. The resulting explosion illuminated the snowy canyon in stark relief, momentarily turning night into day as the Russian position disappeared in a ball of flame. Simultaneously, Torres and Chen deployed their smoke grenades and flashbangs, creating a chaotic wall of obscurement along the eastern approach. The disorienting combination of limited visibility, thunderous noise, and the sudden elimination of their fire support position threw the Russian operators into momentary confusion. Spencer seized the opportunity, sprinting through the chaos toward the convoy with remarkable speed despite the challenging terrain. His low profile and white camouflage rendering him nearly invisible in the swirling smoke and snow. Meanwhile, Mitchell began broadcasting confusing orders in Russian on the enemy's tactical frequency, creating the impression that their command structure had been compromised. The psychological impact was immediate. Russian operators hesitated, unsure which orders were legitimate, as contradictory commands flooded their communication channels. Callahan watched with professional satisfaction as the carefully orchestrated chaos unfolded according to plan. The convoy security team, recognizing the narrow window of opportunity, began executing a fighting withdrawal toward the Stonebridge coordinates, using their remaining operational vehicles to transport wounded personnel and their high-value package. But even as the plan progressed, Callahan knew the advantage would be temporary. These were Spetsnaz-trained operators, among the most adaptable and resilient special forces in the world. They would recover quickly, reorganize, and pursue with even greater determination once they realized their primary target was escaping. The race to the Stonebridge had begun, and somewhere in the swirling snow, two of the world's deadliest snipers continued their lethal dance, each seeking the momentary advantage that would end their contest permanently. As the convoy and Rangers fought their way toward the Stonebridge, Colonel William Bill Harrison sat in his cluttered home office in Denver, surrounded by secure communication equipment that would have been more at home in a military command center than a suburban residence. At 72, Bill's body might have aged, but his mind remained razor-sharp, honed by decades of Cold War intelligence operations. His weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency across specialized keyboards, monitoring encrypted channels and satellite feeds focused on the developing situation in the Colorado mountains. When his secure phone rang, he answered before the first ring completed. "Tell me you have good news, James." Lieutenant Colonel Reynolds' voice came through, tense with controlled urgency. "Bill, it's worse than we thought. Confirmation on Petrov. He's running the operation personally, and he brought Alexei Koshkin with him." Bill's expression darkened. "Koshkin the Ghost Wolf. They were not messing around." This isn't just about grabbing Baranov and his intelligence on the legacy Soviet weapons. Petrov specifically recognized Morgan. He was waiting for her to get involved. Bill closed his eyes, momentarily processing the implications. I warned her this might happen. Ever since Checkpoint Alpha, I've been tracking anomalies. Subtle patterns suggesting someone with high-level access was manipulating intelligence to target her specifically. You think Petrov has an inside man? I know he does, Bill replied grimly. The question is how high the corruption goes. Through his monitor, Bill watched thermal imagery of the ongoing engagement, the white-hot signatures of weapons fire punctuating the snowy landscape. Despite his distance from the action, his military instincts assessed the tactical situation with practiced ease. Your Rangers are performing admirably, he noted. Callahan is good. Moving them toward the stone bridge was textbook adaptation. He didn't come up with that, Reynolds responded. Morgan directed them there before she went silent. Bill couldn't suppress a small smile of pride. She always had the best tactical mind I've ever encountered, even better than her father. About that, Reynolds said carefully, Callahan is asking questions about her background, her connection to Petrov. The team deserves to know what they're really dealing with. Bill's gaze shifted to an old photograph on his desk, a younger version of himself standing beside a tall, distinguished man in CIA operational gear, taken somewhere in Eastern Europe during the height of Cold War tensions. Kate's father, John Morgan, had been his closest friend and the agency's most effective deep-cover operative until his death in 1975. Tell them what they need to know, Bill decided, but secure channel only. This goes beyond today's operation. As Reynolds established a secure connection to Callahan's team, Bill prepared to share the classified history that connected Kate Morgan to Viktor Petrov, a history that had begun long before either of them had entered military service. At the Stone Bridge, Captain Callahan had established a defensive perimeter, integrating his Rangers with the surviving convoy security personnel. The MRAP containing Dr. Baranov and the critical intelligence had been positioned in the center of their defensive formation, partially protected by the bridge's stone structure. The Russian defector had been wounded during the initial attack but was stable thanks to Chen's medical intervention. The team had temporarily repelled their pursuers, creating a brief window to regroup and assess their situation. It was during this momentary respite that Callahan received the secure transmission from Mountain Fortress Base. Captain, this is Colonel Reynolds. I'm patching in Colonel William Harrison, retired CIA Operations Director and Kate Morgan's former handler. He has critical intelligence about the situation you are facing. Bill's voice came through with the calm authority of someone who had managed life-or-death operations for decades. Captain Callahan, I understand you've got questions about Morgan and her connection to Petrov. I'm cleared to fill in the gaps. Sir, with all due respect, my team is in the middle of a combat situation against Russian operators on U.S. soil. I need to know what we're really dealing with here. That's precisely why I'm contacting you, Bill replied. This goes beyond today's operation. Viktor Petrov's vendetta against Kate Morgan began before she ever fired a shot at his brother in '89. As Callahan listened, Bill revealed the classified history that had led to this moment. Kate Morgan wasn't just any special operations sniper. She was the daughter of John Morgan, one of America's most effective CIA operatives during the Cold War, specializing in Eastern Bloc operations. In 1975, John was running a network of assets inside Soviet military intelligence, Bill explained. He uncovered evidence of a program called Sleeping Dragon, sleeper agents planted in American military and intelligence organizations designed to activate decades later. What happened? Callahan asked, already suspecting the answer. His cover was compromised by someone inside our own agency. The Soviets captured, tortured, and executed him. Bill's voice remained steady despite the painful memory. Kate was only 14 when it happened. I had promised John I'd look after her if anything happened to him. I became her guardian and eventually her pathway into special operations. And Petrov's connection. Viktor and Nikolai Petrov's father was the KGB officer who conducted John's interrogation. He made recordings, sent them to us as psychological warfare. Kate heard her father's final moments when she was just a child. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. This wasn't simply a professional grudge between operators. It was the culmination of generational hatred forged in the darkest corners of the Cold War. When Kate eliminated Nikolai Petrov in 1989, she had no idea of the connection. Bill continued. It was a standard high-value target elimination, but Victor recognized her name from his father's files. He's spent the last 17 years planning his revenge, first by destroying her career, now by attempting to eliminate her personally. And the Russian defector, Dr. Baranov, Callahan pressed. How does he fit into this? Baranov's intelligence about forgotten Soviet weapons on U.S. soil is legitimate and critical, Bill confirmed. But I believe Petrov manipulated the timing of Baranov's defection, creating an opportunity to draw Kate out while simultaneously acquiring valuable intelligence. Two objectives with one operation, Callahan observed grimly. Exactly. Petrov is executing a personal vendetta within the framework of a state-sponsored intelligence operation. The perfect cover for his true agenda. Torres, who had been monitoring the defensive perimeter, interrupted with urgent news. Captain, movement on all approaches. They've regrouped and are preparing for a coordinated assault. Callahan quickly refocused on the immediate threat. Colonel Harrison, we'll continue this discussion if we survive the next 30 minutes. Right now, I've got Russians closing in on all sides and limited ammunition to hold them off. Understood, Captain. But there's one more thing you need to know. Bill's voice took on a new urgency. Based on the communication patterns I'm intercepting, I believe Petrov has a high-level source inside our military command structure. Someone who provided the exact route information and security details for this convoy. A traitor, Callahan's voice hardened. A Russian sleeper possibly activated recently. Be extremely careful about who you communicate with. Limit your transmissions to this secure channel only. As if to emphasize the point, the distinctive sound of mortar rounds could be heard in the distance, their whistling approach warning of imminent impact. Take cover, Callahan shouted, ending the communication as his team scrambled for protection beneath the stone bridge's ancient structure. The first rounds impacted with devastating precision, suggesting the Russians had exact coordinates for their position, information they shouldn't have had without inside help. As dust and stone fragments rained down around them, Callahan processed the implications of Harrison's warning. They weren't just fighting against overwhelming odds and deteriorating weather conditions. They were potentially compromised from within their own command structure. The realization added a new dimension of complexity to an already desperate situation. Whom could they trust? Where could they turn for reinforcement? And most importantly, was Kate Morgan still alive out there? Or had Alexei Koshkin already eliminated their one remaining advantage? Kate Morgan moved like a phantom through the deepening snow, every step calculated to leave minimal trace as she navigated the treacherous terrain. Her duel with Alexei Koshkin had evolved into a psychological chess match. Two master predators stalking each other through a frozen wilderness where the slightest mistake meant death. She had abandoned her primary weapon. The TAC-338's signature report had made it impossible to maintain stealth. Now she carried only her sidearm, a custom Wilson Combat 1911, and her backup weapon, a compact Remington 700 folding stock rifle that sacrificed long-range capability for mobility. Kate had spent the last 20 minutes executing a wide flanking maneuver, using her intimate knowledge of winter warfare to mask her movement patterns. The driving snow had become both obstacle and ally, limiting visibility while covering her tracks almost as quickly as she made them. Through her tactical headset, she monitored the encrypted frequency that Callahan's team was using, gathering fragmented intelligence about their situation at the stone bridge. They had temporarily established a defensive position, but were facing imminent assault from Petrov's regrouped forces. More concerningly, they appeared to be dealing with a potential security breach, someone with high-level access providing operational intelligence to the Russians. The implications were deeply troubling, suggesting this incursion was part of a much larger and more sophisticated operation than a simple snatch-and-grab mission. A subtle disturbance in the snow pattern 30 meters ahead caught her attention. Kate froze in place, becoming one with the winter landscape as her trained eyes identified the nearly invisible sign of recent movement, a compression pattern that would be undetectable to anyone without her specialized training. Alexei had passed this way recently, moving toward an elevated position that would provide overwatch of the stone bridge. The Russian sniper was positioning himself to support Petrov's assault on the Rangers' position. Kate altered her course, moving parallel to Alexei's trail with predatory focus. For the first time since their deadly game began, she had an advantage. knowledge of his position without revealing her own. As she closed the distance, Kate heard Callahan's voice through her headset directing his team to prepare for the imminent Russian assault. They were running low on ammunition and medical supplies, with limited options for evacuation if the position was overrun. The situation was rapidly approaching critical. If she couldn't neutralize Alexei quickly and return to provide sniper support, the Rangers and the Russian defector would likely be overwhelmed by Petrov's superior forces. Kate crested a small ridge and finally spotted her quarry, Alexei Koshkin, perfectly positioned in a natural hide formed by overhanging rock and accumulated snow. His rifle was already deployed, its suppressed barrel tracking movement around the stone bridge as he prepared to eliminate key defensive positions when the main assault began. She had perhaps 30 seconds before he would detect her presence. 30 seconds to decide how to approach an opponent whose skills potentially matched or exceeded her own. The ethical professional choice would be to eliminate him immediately with a clean shot from her current position. But something held her back, a realization that Alexei might be the key to understanding the larger picture behind this operation. Kate made her decision approaching silently until she stood just 15 feet behind the Russian sniper, her sidearm trained on the back of his head. "Don't move, Alexei," she said quietly in Russian, her accent flawless after years of operational deployment. "Your position is compromised." To his credit, Koshkin didn't flinch or make any sudden movements. His body language reflected professional recognition of a superior tactical position. "Catherine Morgan," he replied in English, his voice calm despite the circumstances. "I wondered when you would finally make your move. You're even better than the report suggested. Slowly remove your hands from your rifle and turn around. Keep them where I can see them." Alexei complied with practiced efficiency, his movements precise and non-threatening as he turned to face her. His features were weather-worn but handsome, with penetrating gray eyes that assessed her with clinical detachment. "So the legendary Deadshot has me at her mercy." He observed a hint of genuine admiration in his voice. "I must admit I didn't hear your approach. Very impressive." "Why is Petrov here, Alexei? This isn't just about the Russian defector or his intelligence on forgotten Soviet weapons. What's the real operation?" A flicker of surprise crossed Alexei's features. "You've been well informed, more than you should be. Answer the question, what's Petrov's actual objective?" Something shifted in Alexei's expression, a subtle change that Kate's trained eye immediately registered. Beneath the professional composure, something else lurked. Reluctance, resentment. "Viktor Petrov is a man obsessed," Alexei said finally. "Yes, the defector and his intelligence are valuable assets for Russia, but this operation was designed specifically to draw you out. He's been planning this since Checkpoint Alpha." "You don't sound entirely convinced of the mission," Kate observed, maintaining her aim, while reading the micro-expressions that revealed Alexei's internal conflict. "I am a professional," he replied stiffly. "I follow orders. Even when those orders place you in an impossible tactical situation on foreign soil. This isn't a sanctioned Russian military operation, is it? This is Petrov's personal vendetta dressed up as intelligence gathering." Alexei's silence was confirmation enough. "He's holding something over you," Kate pressed, recognizing the signs of coercion she'd seen in compromised operators before. "What is it, Alexei?" The Russian sniper's composed facade cracked slightly. "My daughter Natasha, 16 years old. After her mother died, Petrov arranged for her education at an exclusive school in Moscow, an education that can be terminated at any time if I fail to perform my duties." The revelation wasn't entirely surprising. Petrov had a reputation for ensuring loyalty through leverage rather than ideology or professional respect. "So you're willing to die on American soil in an unsanctioned operation, leaving your daughter completely under Petrov's control?" Kate challenged. Something dangerous flashed in Alexei's eyes. "What choice do I have? You think your American government would help the daughter of a Russian operative, that they would extract her from Moscow if I betrayed Petrov?" Kate maintained her aim but adjusted her approach. "What if there was another option? One that secured your daughter's safety while stopping whatever Petrov has planned?" Alexei's skepticism was evident, but she had captured his attention. "I'm listening. I have connections. People who specialize in exactly this type of extraction. Former intelligence officers with networks still active in Moscow. Bill Harrison, Alexei stated, surprising Kate with his knowledge. Your mentor, former CIA Eastern Europe Operations Director. Now it was Kate's turn to be caught off guard. You've done your research. As I said, Catherine, you're even more impressive than the reporters suggested. I studied everything available about you, including your connections. A sudden burst of radio communication from Kate's tactical headset interrupted their tense negotiation. Callahan's voice, urgent with combat stress. All positions, be advised, Russian assault elements approaching from multiple directions. Prepare for immediate engagement. The moment of decision had arrived. Kate could eliminate Alexei, now removing Petrov's critical sniper support before rejoining the Rangers at the Stone Bridge. Or she could take a calculated risk on turning a potential ally, one whose skills and inside knowledge might prove decisive. Make your choice, Alexei, she said firmly. Die here serving a man who's using your daughter as a pawn, or help me stop Petrov and I guarantee her safe extraction from Moscow within 48 hours. Petrov has men watching her constantly. Alexei countered, though his resolve was clearly weakening. If he even suspects I've betrayed him. Bill Harrison extracted 26 high-risk assets from East Berlin during the height of Soviet control, Kate replied. A teenage girl from a Moscow school is well within his capabilities. Alexei studied her face, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, he made his decision. What do you need me to do? The stone bridge loomed through the swirling snow, a relic from another era when railways had carved their way through the Colorado mountains. Its massive granite blocks had withstood a century of brutal winters, creating a natural fortress that now served as the Rangers' last defensive position. Captain Callahan directed his team with the focused intensity of someone who understood their precarious situation. The Rangers and remaining convoy security personnel had established firing positions covering all potential approaches, but their ammunition was running critically low. Status report, he demanded, moving between positions to assess their readiness for the imminent Russian assault. Torres, his face streaked with blood from a shrapnel wound sustained during their fighting withdrawal, reported grimly. Sir, we're down to approximately 30% ammunition capacity. Williams has 2 anti-armor rounds remaining for the Carl Gustav. Mitchell's established communications with Mountain Fortress, but reinforcements are at least 40 minutes out due to weather conditions. What about air support? Negative, sir. Nothing can fly in this weather except the Russians' heavy-lift helicopter, and they're still 20 minutes out, according to Mitchell's intercepted communications. Callahan turned his attention to the MRAP, where Chen was treating Dr. Baronov's wounds while simultaneously securing the critical intelligence materials. How's our package? Stable but critical, sir, Chen replied. He's lost significant blood, and I'm running low on medical supplies. He needs evacuation to a surgical facility within the next 2 hours, or his chances drop significantly. The situation was deteriorating exactly as Petrov had planned. Isolated, outmanned, and running low on resources, they faced a coordinated assault by elite operators with superior numbers and equipment. Sir, Mitchell called urgently from her communications position. I'm picking up movement on all approaches. Thermal imaging shows multiple heat signatures converging on our position. Callahan studied the tactical displayed on Mitchell's equipment, counting at least 30 distinct signatures moving with the disciplined spacing of professional operators. Petrov had reorganized his forces and was preparing for a final overwhelming assault. Where the hell is Morgan? Torres muttered, voicing the question everyone was thinking. As if in answer, Callahan's secure radio crackled with Kate's voice, the first they'd heard from her since she'd gone silent to engage Alexei Koshkin. Callahan, this is Morgan. Be advised, I'm approaching your position from the northwest ridge with additional asset. Hold your fire on our approach. Additional asset, Callahan questioned sharply. Identify immediately. Alexei Koshkin, Russian sniper. He's agreed to assist in exchange for extraction of family member from Moscow. I've vouched for his cooperation. Callahan's expression hardened with skepticism. You expect me to trust a Russian operative who was trying to kill us 20 minutes ago? No, I expect you to trust my assessment of the tactical situation. Kate replied with the calm authority of someone who had made similar life or death decisions countless times before. Koshkin provides us with critical intelligence on Petrov's assault plan and force disposition. Without him, your chances of holding that position until reinforcements arrive are approximately 0. After a moment's consideration, Callahan made his decision. Approach with caution. Any hostile movement, and we will engage. Within minutes, Kate emerged from the swirling snow with Alexei following closely behind. Both moved with a distinctive economy of motion that marked elite operators, their weapons visible but non-threatening as they approached the ranger's position. Torres immediately trained his weapon on Alexei, his expression making clear his distrust of the Russian sniper. Kate stepped between them with deliberate calm. He's with me, Sergeant, and right now he's our best chance of surviving the next 30 minutes. Callahan approached, studying Alexei with the calculating assessment of a veteran combat leader. Give me one reason why I shouldn't place you under arrest immediately. Because Viktor Petrov has deployed his forces in a three-tier assault formation designed to overwhelm your position from multiple angles simultaneously, Alexei replied in perfect English. Because he has two specialized breach teams with thermite charges prepared to cut through your MRAP's armor within 90 seconds of engagement. Because his extraction helicopter is equipped with infrared countermeasures that will render your anti-aircraft capabilities useless. The precision of the intelligence was compelling. Callahan glanced at Kate, who gave a subtle nod of confirmation. Morgan vouches for you. That buys you temporary trust, Callahan told Alexei. But if this is a setup, Captain, Alexei interrupted with professional respect, if I wanted you eliminated, I could have done so from 800 meters away without ever approaching your position. Right now, my daughter's safety depends on your survival. The Russian sniper unfolded a tactical map, quickly marking key positions where Petrov had deployed his assault teams. The level of detail confirmed he had been fully briefed on the operation. His primary assault will come from these three approaches, Alexei explained, indicating the marked positions. Two four-man teams from the north, three from the east, and his heavy weapons support from this elevated position to the south. The assault begins in approximately 7 minutes, coordinated with mortar fire to suppress your defensive positions. Callahan studied the map, already formulating countermeasures based on the new intelligence. Williams repositioned the Carl Gustav to cover the southern approach. Mitchell Torres, concentrate fire on the eastern teams when they break cover. Spencer, you and Chen secure the tunnel entrance in case we need emergency evacuation. As the team repositioned according to the updated tactical plan, Kate pulled Callahan aside for a critical update. There's more, she said quietly. Petrov's real objective isn't just Baranov or his intelligence. He's testing a new tactical approach for Russian special operations, using private military contractors with plausible deniability to conduct direct action operations on American soil. If successful, this becomes the blueprint for future incursions. How reliable is this information? Alexei was briefed directly by Petrov. This operation has approval from the highest levels of Russian military intelligence. They're using Petrov's personal vendetta against me as cover for what amounts to a proof-of-concept mission on American territory. The implications were chilling. If Russian special operations could successfully conduct military actions inside the United States without direct attribution, it would fundamentally alter the security landscape. There's something else. Kate continued, her expression grave. According to Alexei, Petrov has been receiving operational intelligence from someone with access to our secure communications. Someone high-ranking. A mole, Callahan concluded grimly. Any idea who? Not yet, but it would have to be someone with direct knowledge of convoy routes, security protocols, and the package's contents. Their conversation was interrupted by Mitchell's urgent call from her observation position. Captain, movement at all approach points. They're starting their advance. Callahan moved quickly to his command position, assessing their final defensive preparations. All positions prepare to engage, conserve ammunition, make every shot count. This is about survival until reinforcement arrives. Kate took up her sniper position, Alexei deploying nearby with his own rifle, now trained on his former comrades. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. America's most lethal sniper fighting alongside Russia's finest marksman against a common enemy. As the first Russian operators broke cover, moving with coordinated precision through the falling snow, Kate settled her breathing and prepared for what promised to be the most challenging engagement of her career. The tactical situation was nearly impossible. Outnumbered, outgunned with limited ammunition, and a critically wounded high-value asset to protect. But as her crosshairs settled on the first target, a calm certainty settled over her. This was what she had trained for throughout her entire career. This was why she had earned the call sign Dead Shot. The TAC-338 roared its deadly greeting to Petrov's advancing forces, and the final battle for the stone bridge began. The stone bridge shuddered under the impact of mortar fire as Russian operators advanced from multiple directions through the swirling snow. Inside the makeshift command center beneath the bridge's massive stone archway, Captain Callahan gathered his team for a final tactical briefing. Their faces illuminated by the harsh glow of tactical flashlights reflected the gravity of their situation. "We have approximately 30 minutes before they breach our perimeter," Callahan stated with calm precision. "After that, it becomes close quarters combat with limited ammunition and a wounded high-value asset to protect." Kate Morgan studied the tactical display Mitchell had set up, showing thermal signatures of Petrov's forces moving into position. She had abandoned her bulky winter gear, now dressed in the sleek black combat uniform that had once been her standard operational attire. The transformation was striking. From isolated mountain recluse back to the legendary operator who had once terrified America's enemies. "Petrov's assault pattern is methodical but predictable," she observed. "Classic Spetsnaz approach. Systematic pressure from multiple directions to divide defensive focus before the main thrust from an unexpected angle." Alexei Koshkin, standing slightly apart from the American operators who still regarded him with suspicion, nodded in agreement. Victor always favored overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision. "But there's a weakness in his approach." "Which is?" Torres asked skeptically, his hand never straying far from his weapon. "Predictability," Kate answered before Alexei could. "His tactics haven't evolved since Afghanistan. He still relies on superior numbers and firepower rather than tactical innovation. So we use his predictability against him," Callahan concluded, already formulating a counter-strategy. "Mitchell, what's the status on communications with Mountain Fortress?" The communications specialist looked up from her equipment with a mixture of frustration and concern. "Intermittent at best, sir. The weather is creating significant interference and—" she hesitated, glancing at Kate, "and someone might be actively jamming specific frequencies." Kate finished for her, understanding the implication. "The mole. Whoever it is, they have access to our encryption protocols," Mitchell confirmed. "I've been cycling through emergency channels, but they're being systematically blocked." Callahan absorbed this information with the practiced calm of a veteran commander. "So we're on our own until reinforcements can physically reach our position. Estimated time? At least 40 minutes in these conditions, assuming they can navigate the terrain in the storm." Kate exchanged a meaningful look with Alexei. Both understood what the others might not yet fully grasp. They wouldn't have 40 minutes once Petrov committed his forces to the final assault. "We need to create a diversion," Kate stated, her tactical mind already formulating a plan. "Something significant enough to disrupt Petrov's assault timeline and create confusion in his command structure." "What did you have in mind?" Callahan asked. Kate turned to Sarah Mitchell. "You intercepted their extraction protocols. The Russian heavy-lift helicopter is scheduled to arrive at specific coordinates for emergency evacuation, correct?" Mitchell nodded. "Yes, approximately 2 kilometers south of our position. They've established a makeshift landing zone on a plateau." "That's our target," Kate declared. "If we can neutralize their extraction capability, it forces Petrov to recalculate his entire operational timeline." "And how exactly do we neutralize a Russian military helicopter from our current position?" Torres questioned skeptically. Kate turned to Williams, the heavy weapons specialist. "The Carl Gustav. You have 2 anti-armor rounds remaining. One of them could disable a helicopter on the ground before it becomes operational." Williams considered this with professional assessment. "Possible, but at 2 kilometers in these weather conditions, that's pushing the effective range significantly." "Not from here," Kate clarified. "From a forward position with a direct line of sight to the landing zone." The implication was clear. Someone would need to move independently to a position within effective firing range of the Russian extraction point, a dangerous mission behind enemy lines. "I'll go," Kate stated with finality. "I know these mountains better than anyone, and I can move without detection through their perimeter." "Not alone," Alexei interjected. "I know Petrov's security protocols, the recognition signals his operators will be using. Without that knowledge, you would never get close enough." Callahan studied both snipers with careful assessment. Sending Kate Morgan, their most effective long-range asset, away from the main defensive position carried significant risk. Including the Russian defector Alexei and the mission multiplied that risk exponentially. Yet the tactical logic was sound. Disrupting the Russian extraction capability would force Petrov to fundamentally alter his assault timeline. And if this is an elaborate ploy for both of you to simply escape the situation, Torres voiced the concern several were thinking. Kate met his gaze directly. If I wanted to disappear, Sergeant, I could have stayed in my cabin and let you all die without ever getting involved. I'm here because Americans are under attack on U.S. soil by Russian special forces. That's the only motivation I need. Ada Alexei's response was equally direct. My daughter remains under Petrov's indirect control in Moscow. Her safety depends entirely on the success of this operation and Morgan's contacts extracting her. I have no incentive to compromise the mission. After a moment's consideration, Callahan made his decision. Go. Take the Carl Gustav and one anti-armor round. Williams keeps the other for our defensive position. You have 20 minutes to reach the landing zone before we expect Petrov's final assault to begin. As Kate and Alexei prepared their equipment, Callahan pulled Kate aside for a final private word. Morgan, if this goes sideways— It won't, she interrupted with quiet confidence. But if it does, he persisted, know that whatever happened at Checkpoint Alpha today, you've proven yourself to be exactly who your reputation claimed, the best we've ever had. Kate acknowledged this with a subtle nod, the closest thing to emotional response she would allow herself in a combat situation. Keep them alive until I get back, Captain. This isn't over yet. As she turned to join Alexei, Mitchell approached with urgent news. Captain, I've established brief contact with Colonel Harrison on an encrypted frequency. He has critical information regarding the potential mole. Put him through, Callahan ordered. Bill Harrison's voice came through the tactical radio with the clarity of someone using advanced communication equipment well beyond standard military issue. Captain, I've been analyzing communication patterns associated with the convoy's operational security. There's only one person who had access to all the necessary information at the level of detail the Russians are displaying. Who? Callahan demanded. Colonel Victor Harris, the same officer who forced Kate's resignation after Checkpoint Alpha. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Harris was Deputy Director of Special Operations Command, a position with access to virtually every classified operation in the field. Are you certain? Callahan questioned the implications, almost too severe to contemplate. Beyond reasonable doubt, Harrison confirmed. I've traced financial transactions, communication patterns, and travel history. Harris has been compromised for years, possibly one of the sleeping dragon assets Kate's father identified before his death in '75. Kate, who had paused to listen, absorbed this information with cold fury. Harris hadn't just ended her career on political pretense. He had been actively working for Russian interests potentially for decades. This goes beyond today's operation, Harrison continued. If Harris is compromised, every special operations mission he's had oversight on for the past 15 years potentially has been as well. I'm working through secure channels to initiate containment protocols, but bureaucracy moves slowly. For now, consider all standard communications compromised. Understood, Callahan replied grimly. We'll maintain radio silence except on your secure channel. As Kate and Alexei prepared to depart through the tunnel system beneath the bridge, she exchanged one final look with Callahan, a silent communication between professionals who understood the overwhelming odds they faced. 20 minutes, she reminded him. Hold until then. With that, the two world-class snipers disappeared into the darkness of the maintenance tunnel, embarking on a mission that could determine the survival of everyone at the stone bridge. Behind them, Callahan turned to his remaining team. All right, let's prepare a proper welcome for our Russian friends. Mitchell worked with Dr. Baranov to secure that intelligence in case we need emergency destruction protocols. Torres Spencer established final defensive positions covering all approach vectors. Williams Chen, prepare fallback positions in the tunnel system. We hold this position at all costs until Morgan completes her mission. As the Rangers moved with disciplined efficiency to execute their assignments, Callahan found himself in the unprecedented position of placing his team's survival in the hands of a disgraced former operator and a Russian defector. Yet somehow, despite the logical reservations such a situation should inspire, he felt a growing confidence. Kate Morgan's reputation hadn't been exaggerated. If anyone could turn this desperate situation around, It would be the woman they called Deadshot. The maintenance tunnel beneath the stone bridge extended approximately half a kilometer before branching into multiple access points. Kate and Alexei moved through the darkness with the silent efficiency of apex predators, their enhanced night vision equipment revealing the path ahead in ghostly green clarity. The eastern exit will place us closest to the Russian extraction point. Alexei whispered, his voice barely audible above the distant sounds of combat filtering through the ancient stonework. Petrov will have security elements monitoring all approach vectors, but they'll be focused on conventional threats, vehicles, standard infantry movement patterns. Not two snipers moving through terrain most would consider impassable, Kate concluded, understanding his thinking. We'll approach from the northwestern ridge, maximum elevation and minimal expected coverage. They reached the eastern exit, a rusted maintenance door that hadn't been opened in decades. Kate examined the mechanism with experienced assessment. Seized shut, we'll need to force it. Alexei produced a compact breaching tool from his equipment, a specialized device designed for exactly this purpose. Russian Special Forces innovation, he explained with a hint of professional pride. Minimal sound, maximum efficiency. The door yielded to their combined effort, revealing the harsh winter landscape beyond. The snowstorm had intensified, visibility reduced to less than 30 meters in the swirling white maelstrom. For most operators, such conditions would render the mission nearly impossible. For Kate Morgan and Alexei Koshkin, it was tactical advantage. The storm provided natural concealment, while their advanced training allowed them to navigate by memory and terrain association when visual references disappeared. They moved through the blizzard like ghosts, maintaining precise distance and perfect situational awareness despite the challenging conditions. The Carl Gustav anti-armor weapon disassembled between them to distribute weight added significant burden, but was essential to their mission. As they approached the ridge overlooking the Russian extraction point, Kate signaled for Alexei to halt. Through her thermal imaging equipment, she had detected movement ahead, a two-man Russian security element patrolling the perimeter. Without words, using only hand signals, they coordinated their approach. Kate circled left while Alexei moved right, enveloping the patrol in a classic pincer movement. The elimination was silent and efficient. Two of the world's best operators demonstrating why they had earned their reputations. From their elevated position on the northwestern ridge, they finally had visual confirmation of the Russian extraction point. A cleared area on a natural plateau had been marked with infrared beacons, visible only through specialized equipment. Two Russian operators maintained the site, periodically communicating with the approaching helicopter via encrypted radio. Extraction helicopter ETA, Kate whispered as they assembled the Carl Gustav. Alexei checked his tactical watch. Approximately 7 minutes based on their last transmission. Weather is slowing their approach, but their Ka-52 helicopters are specifically designed for these conditions. Kate calibrated the anti-armor weapon, compensating for distance, elevation, and environmental factors. One shot. We won't get a second attempt once they realize what's happening. The shot is feasible, Alexei confirmed after his own assessment. But Petrov will have contingency protocols. The moment that helicopter is compromised, he'll accelerate the assault timeline on the stone bridge position. That's exactly what we want, Kate replied, surprising him. A rushed assault means mistakes, breaks in their carefully coordinated approach. It gives Callahan's team fighting chances they wouldn't have against Petrov's methodical standard approach. Before Alexei could respond, movement in their peripheral vision caught their attention. Through her thermal optics, Kate detected a figure moving with extraordinary stealth through the snow-covered terrain, approaching their position with the unmistakable discipline of elite special forces. We're compromised, she whispered, already shifting position to intercept the threat. No, Alexei replied, his voice hardening. That's Petrov himself. I recognize his movement pattern. Kate processed this unexpected development with lightning tactical assessment. Viktor Petrov commanding the assault from a distance was one thing. Petrov personally approaching their position was entirely another. It suggested he somehow knew they were here. Impossible unless... He's tracking you, she realized, turning to Alexei with sudden suspicion. He's always been tracking you. To his credit, the Russian sniper didn't attempt denial. Emergency transponder, he confirmed, revealing a small device embedded in his tactical gear. Standard Spetsnaz protocol. Activates automatically if communication patterns suggest compromise or defection. And you didn't think to mention this. I disabled it, Alexei insisted. Or I thought I did. Petrov must have installed redundant systems without my knowledge. The tactical situation had just deteriorated significantly. Their mission to disable the extraction helicopter now complicated by Petrov's direct intervention. Change of plans, Kate decided instantly. You complete the anti-armor shot on the extraction zone. I'll intercept Petrov. He's not alone, Alexei warned. He never operates without at least 2 bodyguards. Then I'll handle them too, Kate replied with cold confidence. Disable that helicopter, then provide overwatch. This ends today. Without waiting for response, Kate moved into the swirling snow, circling toward Petrov's approaching position. The Carl Gustav was Alexei's responsibility now. Her mission had become far more personal. Through her advanced thermal optics, she tracked Petrov and his security element. 2 operators moving with the disciplined spacing of veteran special forces. Their approach pattern suggested absolute confidence, the casual arrogance of predators who believed themselves at the top of the tactical food chain. Kate allowed them to pass her concealed position, then initiated her approach from behind. The first bodyguard never knew what hit him, a precision knife strike that severed his carotid artery before he could make a sound. The second sensed something wrong, an instant too late, managing half a turn before Kate's blade found its mark with surgical precision. Only then did Petrov realize he was alone, his security element eliminated with an efficiency that few operators in the world could match. "Hello, Victor," Kate said quietly in Russian, emerging from the swirling snow like an apparition. "It's been a long time." Viktor Petrov turned slowly, his weathered face revealing no surprise at her appearance. At 60, he remained an imposing figure, tall and powerfully built, with the cold eyes of someone who had orchestrated death for decades without remorse. "Catherine Morgan," he replied in perfect English. "Or should I say Deadshot? The Americans gave you such dramatic call signs." "You went to extraordinary lengths to arrange this meeting," Kate observed, maintaining perfect distance. Close enough for conversation, far enough to react if he attempted aggression. "Checkpoint Alpha, the Russian defector, this entire operation. All to draw me out of retirement." Petrov's thin smile contained no warmth. "Quite impressive, isn't it? Years of planning, positioning assets, creating the perfect scenario. All for this moment. Because I killed your brother in '89. That's a long time to nurse a grudge, Victor. Is that what you think this is about?" Petrov actually laughed, a harsh, humorless sound that cut through the howling wind. "My brother was a soldier. He died in service to his country. I respected that outcome, even from an enemy's bullet." Kate's tactical assessment shifted. If not revenge for his brother, then what had driven this elaborate operation? "Your father," Petrov continued, watching her reaction carefully. "John Morgan, my father's most significant intelligence victory during the Cold War." The mention of her father sent ice through Kate's veins that had nothing to do with the surrounding snowstorm. "The Americans told you he died in '75, yes, a captured CIA operative executed after interrogation." Petrov's eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. "They lied to you, Catherine. Your father didn't die in 1975. Kate maintained perfect emotional discipline, her expression revealing nothing despite the psychological impact of his words. "You're lying. My John Morgan lived for another 12 years in a special KGB facility outside Moscow. My father's personal project, breaking America's most effective deep-cover operative, turning him piece by piece until nothing remained of the man he once was. Psychological warfare, Victor Wurst expected better tactics from you." Petrov reached into his pocket, producing a small metallic object that he held up for her to see. "Your father's wedding ring, the one he refused to remove even during operations, the one missing from his personal effects that the CIA returned to your family." Kate recognized it instantly, the distinctive platinum band with its internal inscription that her mother had shown her as a child. "He gave it to me in 1987, just before his death. Said I should return it to his daughter when the time was right." Petrov's smile widened at her barely concealed shock. "Your father helped train me, Catherine. Broken men make excellent instructors when properly motivated. Everything I know about American Special Operations tactics came directly from John Morgan." The revelation struck Kate with devastating force. If true, it meant her entire life, her career, her missions, even her legendary status as America's deadliest sniper, had been built on a foundation of lies. This operation was never about the Russian defector. Petrov continued pressing his psychological advantage. It was about completing the circle, father against daughter. The final lesson from John Morgan's unwilling instruction. In the distance, the distinctive sound of the Carl Gustav firing broke through the howling wind, followed by the satisfaction of a massive explosion as Alexei's shot found its mark at the extraction point. The Russian helicopter was no longer an operational concern, but Kate barely registered this tactical victory. Her mind was processing Petrov's claims with cold analytical precision, seeking inconsistencies or manipulations in his psychological warfare approach. If you're telling the truth, she said finally, then you've made a critical error, Victor. And what might that be? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. You've given me something new to fight for. Her stance shifted subtly, the minute adjustment of a predator preparing to strike. Before this was professional. Now it's personal. Petrov's hand moved toward his sidearm with the practiced speed of a career operator, but Kate was already in motion. Her first strike knocked the weapon from his grip, the second connected with surgical precision to his solar plexus, driving the breath from his lungs. Despite his age, Petrov was far from defenseless. He countered with a devastatingly powerful combination that would have incapacitated most opponents, his technique revealing decades of hand-to-hand combat experience. But Kate Morgan hadn't earned her reputation through luck. She flowed around his attacks with fluid precision, each movement economical and purposeful. This wasn't the wild brawling of amateurs, but the lethal choreography of two master operators, a deadly dance where the slightest mistake meant death. Your father lasted 3 years before his first suicide attempt. Petrov taunted between exchanges, attempting to break her concentration. After the 5th attempt, they removed his limbs. Hard to open veins without hands. Kate's expression remained impassive, her focus absolute, as she systematically exploited the microscopic weaknesses in his defense. Age had slowed Petrov by fractions of seconds, barely perceptible to ordinary observers, but fatal disadvantages against an operator of Kate's caliber. The recording they sent you, Petrov continued, blood now streaming from a cut above his eye. The one of his interrogation, that was year 3. He still believed rescue was coming then. By year 5, he was begging for death. A particularly vicious exchange left Petrov staggering, his breathing ragged as the combination of age cold and Kate's precision strikes took their toll. You fight well, he acknowledged, genuine professional respect in his voice despite the circumstances. Your father would be proud. My father taught me that some enemies deserve no mercy, Kate replied, advancing methodically as Petrov gave ground. That certain threats can never be rehabilitated or contained. Petrov's back hit a snow-covered boulder, leaving him nowhere to retreat. Then finish it, he challenged. Prove you are truly John Morgan's daughter. Kate moved with blinding speed, her knife appearing in her hand, as if by magic as she closed the final distance between them. The blade stopped a millimeter from Petrov's throat, held there by her perfect control. That's the difference between us, Victor, she said quietly. My father also taught me that revenge is hollow. Justice is what matters. Confusion flickered across Petrov's features, quickly replaced by understanding as Kate produced a set of specialized restraints. You're taking me alive, to what end? Intelligence, she replied, simply securing his hands with professional efficiency. About Harris, about Sleeping Dragon, about every operation you've compromised over the past 30 years. The distant sound of gunfire intensified, reminding them both of the ongoing battle at the Stone Bridge. Petrov's forces, having witnessed the destruction of their extraction capability, would now be executing their final assault on the Rangers' position. Your men are attacking American forces on U.S. soil, Kate informed him coldly. That's an act of war, Victor, one that will have severe consequences once you start talking. They are prepared to die for the mission, Petrov responded with grim certainty. Perhaps, but are you prepared to spend the rest of your life in a black site somewhere subjected to the same techniques your father pioneered? The implied threat hung between them, made more potent by its delivery without emotion or emphasis. Your choice, Victor. Call off your men, or discover exactly how creative American interrogation specialists can be when properly motivated. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Petrov's features. The realization that his carefully orchestrated operation had transformed from a triumphant validation of his methods into a catastrophic strategic failure. In the distance, Alexei's rifle began its methodical work, the distinctive report marking the elimination of Russian operators attempting to flank the Stonebridge position. The legendary Russian sniper, having destroyed their extraction capability, was now systematically dismantling Petrov's assault force from an elevated position no one had anticipated. "It seems your protege has changed allegiance," Kate observed with cold satisfaction. "Another miscalculation on your part." Petrov's expression hardened as the full scope of his failure became apparent. "Even if today's operation fails, Sleeping Dragon remains. There are others like Harris embedded throughout your military and intelligence infrastructure. Operatives who have waited decades for activation. Then you'll help us find them," Kate replied with absolute certainty, "one way or another." With Petrov secured, Kate established communication with Callahan's team, coordinating their response to the now disorganized Russian assault. Without central command, and with their extraction capability destroyed, the Russian operators were facing a tactical situation rapidly deteriorating beyond salvation. As American reinforcements finally broke through the storm, approaching the Stonebridge position from multiple directions, Kate stood watch over the captured architect of so much suffering, both national and personal. Whatever truths Petrov had revealed about her father would be addressed in time. For now, the mission took priority. As always, the distinctive thrum of American helicopter rotors cut through the diminishing storm as reinforcement teams finally reached the Stonebridge. The tactical landscape had transformed dramatically in the 30 minutes since Kate and Alexei had disabled the Russian extraction capability. Without Petrov's central command and facing unexpected resistance from multiple directions, the Russian assault had devolved into uncoordinated engagements. Their superior numbers and equipment advantages negated by confusion and mounting casualties. Captain Callahan directed the final defensive operations from the Stonebridge command position, coordinating with incoming support teams while maintaining communication with Kate through their secure channel. "Morgan, be advised, we have friendly QRF approaching your position," he transmitted. "Three-man team call sign Stalker. They've been briefed on your status and are authorized to take custody of Petrov." "Copy that," Kate replied, maintaining vigilant watch over the secured Russian commander. "Be advised, Petrov has confirmed Colonel Harris as compromised asset. Recommend extreme communication discipline until Harris is contained." "Already handled," came Bill Harrison's voice over the secure frequency. "Harris was taken into custody 20 minutes ago at Pentagon headquarters. Initial interrogation confirms he's been active as a Russian asset since 1908. The news represented a significant counterintelligence victory beyond the immediate tactical situation. Harris's position had given him access to some of America's most sensitive special operations for decades. The damage assessment would likely take years to complete. Through her thermal optics, Kate identified the approaching Quick Reaction Force team, 3 operators moving with the distinctive precision of Tier 1 Special Forces. She recognized the lead operator's movement pattern instantly. "Hello, Thomas," she greeted the team leader as they reached her position. "Still taking the high ground approach to everything I see." Master Sergeant Thomas Walker, her former spotter from multiple deployments, smiled with genuine warmth despite the tactical situation. "Old habits, Kate. Good to see you back in the game." And temporarily, she corrected, though without the certainty such a statement would have carried hours earlier. Walker assessed Petrov with professional interest. "So this is the infamous Viktor Petrov. Doesn't look so impressive trussed up like a Thanksgiving turkey." "Don't underestimate him," Kate warned. "Even captured, he's dangerous. Full tactical protocols during transport." "Understood." Walker signaled his team to take custody of the Russian commander. "Harrison wants him delivered directly to a specialized facility outside Richmond. No standard processing, no record of capture in official channels." Kate nodded, understanding the implications. Whatever intelligence Petrov possessed would be extracted through channels entirely separate from potentially compromised official systems. Bill Harrison was taking no chances with additional Sleeping Dragon assets. "What about the situation at the bridge?" she asked, already gathering her equipment for the return journey. Contained. The remaining Russian operators are either neutralized or in retreat. Callahan's team performed exceptionally given the circumstances. Walker hesitated, then added, "Your Russian friend contributed significantly to the defense. His marksmanship is, impressive." Alexei Koshkin, currently the Russian Federation's most accomplished sniper. Kate allowed herself a small smile, though after today I imagine his employment status might change. As Walker's team prepared to transport Petrov via specialized vehicle that had navigated the treacherous mountain roads, Kate received a final transmission from Callahan. Morgan's situation secure at the bridge. Dr. Baranov stabilized and en route to medical facility with intelligence package intact. Recommend you return to base for full debriefing. The formal invitation to return to official military facilities represented more than operational necessity. It was tacit acknowledgement that her status had fundamentally changed, from disgraced former operator to potential asset once again. "Copy that," she replied, en route with Koshkin. As Kate made her way back toward the stone bridge, the tactical landscape revealed the full extent of the engagement. Multiple Russian casualties marking positions where precision fire from both American defenders and Alexei's intervention had broken their assault momentum. She found Alexei at his overwatch position, methodically cleaning his rifle despite the freezing conditions. The habitual maintenance routine of a professional who respected his tools, a trait they shared. "Petrov is secured," she informed him, "being transported to specialized intelligence facility." Alexei nodded, his expression revealing a complex mixture of professional satisfaction and personal uncertainty. "And his revelation about your father." Kate had shared Petrov's claims during a brief communication after his capture. "To be determined, Harrison will verify or debunk it. For what it's worth," Alexei offered carefully, "Petrov is known for psychological warfare, using personal information as weapons. It's possible he fabricated the entire story." "Possible," Kate acknowledged, "but the ring was genuine." They walked in silence for several minutes, two apex predators whose mutual respect had been forged in the crucible of shared combat. Eventually, Alexei addressed the question hanging between them. "What happens to me now?" Kate considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. "Harrison has arranged extraction for your daughter from Moscow. She'll be transported to a secure location within 48 hours, then provided new identity documentation for relocation to the United States. And me? That depends on you. America values intelligence assets with your specific expertise. There would be substantial debriefing, but afterward, possibilities exist." Alexei absorbed this with thoughtful consideration. "A new life, teaching Americans to shoot like Russians, perhaps?" "Something like that," Kate confirmed, "though I might have a few things to teach you as well." The Russian sniper raised an eyebrow. "Such confidence, Catherine Morgan." "Not confidence, mathematical certainty. Your Afghanistan shot was technically perfect. Mine was technically impossible." The faintest hint of competitive humor colored her voice, the first lightness she had allowed herself since the operation began. As they approached the stone bridge, American military personnel moved with disciplined efficiency, securing the area and treating wounded. The Russian defector, Dr. Baranov, had already been evacuated with his critical intelligence about forgotten Soviet weapons on American soil, the original objective that had initiated the entire sequence of events. Captain Callahan greeted them as they arrived, his expression reflecting new respect, despite the exhaustion of prolonged combat. "Morgan, Koshkin, outstanding work with the extraction helicopter and subsequent support fire." "The Rangers held their position admirably," Kate acknowledged, returning professional respect. "Your tactical adaptability under pressure was impressive." High praise coming from Deadshot Morgan. Callahan extended his hand, an unambiguous gesture that transcended their complex circumstances. "Whatever happens next, I'd consider it an honor to work with you again." Kate accepted the handshake, her usual reserve softening momentarily. "Likewise, Captain, you have a good team." As the military personnel completed their operational security protocols preparing for full withdrawal from the area, Bill Harrison arrived via tactical helicopter, his age doing nothing to diminish his commanding presence as he approached Kate with purposeful strides. "Kate," he greeted her with uncharacteristic warmth, briefly embracing the woman who was more daughter than operative to him. Remarkable work under impossible circumstances. Again, Bill, she returned the embrace briefly before professional distance reasserted itself. Petrov is secure. Being processed as we speak, his revelations about Harris have already been verified through preliminary interrogation. The damage assessment is substantial. And his claims about my father? Harrison's expression shifted subtly, the micro-expression of someone preparing to deliver difficult information. Initial verification suggests the ring is genuine. Beyond that, we're investigating. If John was indeed alive beyond 1975, there would be additional evidence. We'll find it one way or another. Kate absorbed this with the compartmentalized emotional discipline that had defined her operational career. Personal revelations, however devastating, would be processed in appropriate time and context. For now, the mission parameters remained active. What happens now, she asked, her focus returning to immediate operational concerns. That's largely up to you, Harrison replied, studying her with the analytical assessment that had made him legendary in intelligence circles. The Pentagon is aware of your critical role in today's operation. The political landscape has shifted considerably since Checkpoint Alpha. Meaning full reinstatement is on the table should you want it. Rank benefits commendations. Everything restored with appropriate compensation for the improper discharge. Kate's expression revealed nothing but internally the offer landed with seismic impact. 6 months of exile of questioning her life's purpose and meaning potentially reversed with a single decision. And if I decline, Harrison's smile carried understanding beyond words, then you return to your cabin to whatever life you choose to build. With the knowledge that when your country needed you most, you answered without hesitation despite everything that happened before. The choice represented more than professional reinstatement. It was about identity, purpose, and the fundamental question of who Catherine Morgan truly was when stripped of her operational designation. I need time, she stated finally, to process everything, including Petrov's claims about my father. Take all the time you need, Harrison assured her. The offer remains open indefinitely. As military personnel completed final evacuation procedures transporting the wounded and securing captured Russian equipment, Kate found herself standing slightly apart, physically present but mentally processing the extraordinary sequence of events that had transformed her circumstances so dramatically in less than 24 hours. From isolated exile to the center of a critical national security operation, from disgraced former operator to potential reinstated asset, from certainty about her father's fate to devastating questions that might never find complete answers. The Colorado mountains stretched before her, their majestic indifference to human concerns, a reminder that some perspectives transcended immediate circumstances. Whatever decision she made would be on her terms with full awareness of both cost and opportunity. For now, that knowledge was enough. 3 days after the Stone Bridge engagement, Kate Morgan sat in a secure conference room deep within Pentagon headquarters surrounded by intelligence officials and military personnel of sufficient rank to require extra chairs around the already substantial table. The debriefing had been exhaustive. 7 hours of detailed questioning about every aspect of the operation from her initial detection of the ambush to the final moments of Petrov's capture. Her responses had been precise, professional, and completely devoid of the emotional context that might have colored a lesser operator's recounting. Now, as the formal proceedings concluded, only the core decision-makers remained: Secretary of Defense Malcolm Pierce, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Robert Calloway, CIA Director Elizabeth Warren, and Bill Harrison, whose unofficial status did nothing to diminish his influence in the room. Miss Morgan. Secretary Pierce began using her civilian designation with careful neutrality. Your actions during the Stone Bridge incident likely prevented a catastrophic intelligence breach and saved numerous American lives. The nation owes you a debt of gratitude that extends beyond formal recognition. Kate acknowledged this with a slight nod, her expression remaining composed. In civilian attire, a simple dark suit that somehow managed to look both professional and vaguely tactical, she projected the same controlled presence that had made her legendary in operational contexts. The Russian incursion represents an unprecedented escalation. General Calloway continued, his weathered features reflecting the gravity of recent revelations. Petrov's confirmation of the Sleeping Dragon Protocol has initiated the most comprehensive counterintelligence operation since the Cold War. Harris wasn't the only one, Kate stated rather than asked. No, CIA Director Warren confirmed grimly. Preliminary interrogations suggest at least 7 additional deep cover assets in positions of significant influence. 2 have already been identified and contained. The others remain active concerns. The implications were staggering. Russian assets embedded within America's military and intelligence infrastructure for decades positioned to compromise operations or provide critical intelligence at strategically significant moments. Which brings us to the matter of your potential reinstatement. Secretary Pierce continued opening a classified folder before him. The President has personally reviewed the circumstances surrounding your discharge following the Checkpoint Alpha incident. In light of Petrov's confirmation that the event was deliberately orchestrated to remove you from operational status, full reinstatement has been authorized at your previous rank with all benefits and commendations restored. The offer hung in the air between them, the formal acknowledgement of injustice and its proposed remedy. Kate had anticipated this moment for 3 days, carefully considering her response from every angle. Mr. Secretary, she began with measured precision, I appreciate the offer and the recognition it represents. However, my reinstatement would be most effective in a specialized capacity rather than standard operational parameters. Her statement caught several participants by surprise, though Harrison's subtle smile suggested he had anticipated this approach. What did you have in mind? General Calloway asked with genuine curiosity. A training role, Kate replied, specifically developing advanced programs for special operations snipers and reconnaissance personnel with emphasis on ethical decision-making in ambiguous tactical situations. The proposal was unexpected, but immediately recognized for its merit. Kate Morgan's unparalleled field experience, combined with the hard lessons of Checkpoint Alpha and its aftermath, created a unique perspective that could benefit generations of future operators. You want to teach others how to make the right calls when the rulebook fails, General Calloway observed with professional appreciation. Precisely. Operational parameters rarely account for the moral complexity of actual field situations. My experience on both sides of that equation provides perspective few instructors could offer. The military and intelligence leaders exchanged thoughtful glances, recognizing the wisdom in her proposal. A reinstated Kate Morgan in a training capacity represented both valuable asset utilization and appropriate acknowledgement of her exceptional status. There's an additional consideration. Bill Harrison interjected, his voice carrying the weight of decades of operational wisdom. The Sleeping Dragon Protocol suggests long-term Russian strategic planning beyond anything we've previously encountered. Kate's unique background makes her ideally suited for a specialized role in counterintelligence operations and was targeting these embedded assets. The implication was clear. Kate's personal connection to the Sleeping Dragon program, through her father's possible involvement, created motivation and insight that standard intelligence personnel couldn't match. A dual role, then, Secretary Pierce concluded thoughtfully. Primary responsibility for developing specialized training programs, with secondary tasking for counterintelligence consultation as needed. With appropriate operational autonomy, Kate added her tone, making clear this condition was non-negotiable. After brief consideration, the Secretary nodded. Acceptable with standard oversight protocols. We'll draft the formal appointment immediately. As the meeting concluded and participants gathered their materials, Director Warren approached Kate privately. There's one more matter, she said quietly, handing Kate a sealed envelope. Preliminary findings regarding your father. Harrison thought you should review them privately. Kate accepted the envelope with outward composure that revealed nothing of her internal response. Whatever revelations awaited within those classified pages would fundamentally alter her understanding of her past and potentially her future. Thank you, she replied simply, placing the envelope in her jacket without opening it. Some truths required private space for proper processing. As she exited the Pentagon's secure conference center, Bill Harrison fell into step beside her, his presence offering silent support without intrusion. You already knew what decision I'd make, Kate observed as they walked through the imposing corridors. I had reasonable probability assessments, he acknowledged with the hint of a smile. Your psychological profile suggests a fundamental need to contribute meaningful service, balanced against equally strong requirements for operational autonomy. Psychoanalyzing me, Bill. Understanding you, he corrected gently. There's a difference. They reached the building's exterior where Washington's spring sunshine created sharp contrast with the Colorado winter Kate had left behind. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them, emerging from darkness into light, from isolation into purposeful engagement. Have you spoken with Alexei? Kate asked, changing subjects with characteristic directness. Harrison nodded. His daughter arrived safely yesterday, currently at a secure facility in Virginia while identity documentation is processed. Alexei himself has been extraordinarily cooperative during debriefing. His knowledge of Russian special operations protocols is impressive. He's a professional, Kate stated simply, the highest compliment in her lexicon. What happens to him now? That's partially your decision. As training director, you have input on specialized instructors. His skill set would complement yours in several key areas. The prospect of working alongside the Russian sniper, whose abilities had earned her genuine respect, represented an intriguing professional opportunity. Their brief operational partnership had demonstrated rare tactical compatibility despite their opposing backgrounds. I'll consider it, she replied neutrally, though her tone suggested the consideration would be favorable. As they reached the parking area, Harrison paused, his expression shifting to something more personal than their professional discussion had allowed. Kate, whatever you find in that envelope, remember that who John Morgan was and what happened to him doesn't define who you are. Your choices do that. The statement carried the weight of someone who had known both father and daughter, who understood the complex legacy that connected them across time and circumstance. I know, Kate replied with quiet certainty. It always has. 1 week later, Kate Morgan stood before her first class at the newly established Advanced Tactical Decision-Making School at Fort Bragg. 24 special operations personnel, representing every branch of America's elite military units, regarded her with the mixture of curiosity and respect her reputation commanded. The classroom itself reflected Kate's instructional philosophy, practical rather than academic, with tactical simulations equipment and advanced training aids replacing traditional lecture formats. These were operators who learned by doing, not by theoretical discussion. Beside her stood Alexei Koshkin, now officially designated as special consultant to the U.S. military under carefully negotiated protocols. His presence had raised eyebrows initially, but Kate's insistence on his unique value as instructor had overcome institutional resistance. My name is Master Sergeant Catherine Morgan. She began without preamble or introduction. Most of you know me by reputation either as Deadshot or as the officer discharged after Checkpoint Alpha. Both perspectives contain elements of truth and elements of mythology. Her direct approach immediately captured their attention. These were professionals who appreciated straightforward communication over diplomatic niceties. This program exists because tactical reality rarely conforms to operational parameters, because sometimes the rulebook fails, because ethical decisions in combat situations often contain ambiguities that no training manual adequately addresses. Kate moved to a tactical display showing complex terrain with multiple threat indicators and civilian presence markers, a simulation of precisely the type of ambiguous situation that had ended her career at Checkpoint Alpha. Each of you was selected because your record demonstrates exceptional technical proficiency coupled with ethical decision-making under pressure. You're already the best your units have to offer. Our job is to make you better. She gestured to Alexei, who activated the simulation's dynamic elements, creating a rapidly evolving tactical scenario that would require immediate decision-making with incomplete information. Mr. Koshkin brings perspective you won't find anywhere else in this training pipeline. 20 years of Russian special operations experience, with emphasis on counter-tactics against American methodology. You will learn how our adversaries think, how they anticipate your responses, and how they exploit predictable decision patterns. The class studied Alexei with professional curiosity rather than hostility, elite operators who recognize valuable knowledge regardless of its source. This program isn't about teaching you what to think, Kate continued. It's about developing frameworks for how to think when facing situations where standard protocols prove inadequate. As the first training session progressed, Kate moved through the classroom with the natural authority of someone who had mastered every aspect of the material through lived experience rather than theoretical study. Her instruction style balanced technical precision with practical application, creating immediate engagement from students accustomed to excellence. Later, as the inaugural class concluded its first day, Captain Callahan, who had been assigned as special liaison to the program following his exceptional performance at Stone Bridge, approached Kate with professional appreciation. "Impressive first session," he observed. "Your approach to the ethical decision matrix in asymmetrical environments is unlike anything in the current doctrine. Because current doctrine is written by committee rather than operators who've lived the consequences of those decisions," Kate replied matter-of-factly. "That changes now." Callahan nodded his understanding. "The Rangers who survived Stone Bridge have been spreading your reputation throughout special operations communities. Applications for this program are already exceeding capacity for the next 3 scheduled sessions." "Quality over quantity," Kate insisted. "We select for capability and character, not just operational records." "Understood. What about Koshkin? How's he adapting?" Kate glanced across the training facility where Alexei was demonstrating advanced camouflage techniques to several operators with the focused precision that marked everything he did. "Professionally, he's exceptional. His methodologies complement ours in ways that create synergistic training-bound outcomes. Personally," she considered briefly, "he's adjusting. Integration after defection is never simple. His daughter adapting well to American education systems. She's staying with a host family near Quantico while Alexei completes his initial contract here." Their conversation was interrupted by Bill Harrison's arrival, his civilian status doing nothing to diminish the respect he commanded as he moved through the facility with purposeful stride. "Bill," Kate greeted him with the subtle warmth she reserved for few people. "I didn't expect you until next week's advanced counterintelligence module." "Change of plans," Harrison replied, his expression conveying significance beyond casual visit. "There's been a development regarding Sleeping Dragon assets. We've identified another one, Assistant Director of Special Activities at CIA, direct reporting line to Petrov through cutouts we've only now discovered." The implications were immediately apparent to both Kate and Callahan. Another high-level Russian asset embedded for decades within America's intelligence infrastructure represented critical security compromise. "Containment protocols," Kate asked, immediately shifting to operational assessment. "In progress but complicated. This one's more sophisticated than Harris. Multiple layers of protection, contingency plans. We need your specific expertise on the approach." Kate understood without elaboration. Her unique perspective on how Russian deep cover assets operated, combined with her personal connection to the program through her father, created value beyond standard counterintelligence capabilities. "When briefing at Langley tomorrow, 0800, Director Warren is personally overseeing the operation." As Harrison departed to make arrangements, Callahan regarded Kate with thoughtful assessment. "So much for the quiet teaching role." "The teaching is primary," she corrected firmly. "The counterintelligence consultation is secondary as agreed, but some threats require specific expertise to address effectively." They walked together through the training facility, passing stations where future elite operators practice the specialized skills that define their profession. Kate observed them with professional assessment, identifying strengths to enhance and weaknesses to address through tailored instruction. "Have you opened it yet?" Callahan asked quietly, referencing the classified envelope Director Warren had provided regarding John Morgan's true fate. Kate's expression revealed nothing of her internal response. "Yes. And some truths are confirmed while others remain elusive," she replied with careful neutrality. "The intelligence community rarely deals in absolute certainties, Captain. Only probabilities and partial confirmations." Her deflection was deliberate but not hostile, a professional boundary established around personal matters that remained in process rather than resolution. As they reached the facility's observation deck overlooking the sprawling training grounds of Fort Bragg, Kate allowed herself a moment of reflection on the extraordinary journey from isolated mountain cabin to Pentagon briefings and specialized training command. 6 months ago, she had been a forgotten operator whose legendary career had ended in controversy and exile. Now she stood at the center of both a critical national security operation and a fundamental reformation of special operations training methodology. The path ahead remained complex, with questions about her father's true fate still partially unanswered, and the ongoing Sleeping Dragon investigation promising further revelations and challenges. Yet for the first time since Checkpoint Alpha, Catherine Morgan had reclaimed something essential. Not just professional purpose, but the profound certainty that her skills served meaningful contribution rather than bureaucratic expediency. You know, Callahan observed, breaking her momentary introspection. There's a saying among the Rangers about impossible situations. The only way out is through. Through the fire, Kate completed with quiet recognition. Exactly. You went through yours and emerged stronger. Now you're teaching others to do the same. The observation carried unexpected weight, the simple truth that redemption came not from erasing past challenges, but from transforming them into wisdom that served others facing similar trials. As the sun set over Fort Bragg's training grounds, Kate Morgan, once again Master Sergeant Morgan, once again serving the country that had both celebrated and abandoned her, contemplated the path that had led her here and the road that stretched ahead. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same precision, discipline, and ethical clarity that had defined her extraordinary career. Not because regulations demanded it, but because integrity required nothing less. Deadshot was back, not as she had been before, but as something perhaps more valuable. A legend who had fallen, endured, and risen again to share the hard-won wisdom of both triumph and adversity. In the world of special operations, there could be no more powerful instructor than that.